please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, we're going to begin tonight with the Nantucket Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board meeting, which is the select board with our other hat on, and I'm going to call that meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. There are no changes to the agenda. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak in public comment for items regarding on issues related to the Transit Authority that are not on the agenda. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Next up is approval of minutes from the May 15th, 2024 Advisory Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Matt, seconded by Dawn. No roll call. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. And now I'm going to ask Gary, our administrator, for his report.
Good evening. I'll be brief. I know you have a long agenda ahead of you. Just a few items on the administrative report. As I pointed out to each one of you earlier, there was an acquisition of the operating company, which is VTS of Mass, that operates the buses for NRTA. They do the fixed route and the paratransit services for us. The principal owner decided to sell his stock in the company. I met with Mercedes Cab from Truro, Mass, that will be taking over the contract. We met with legal counsel. We approved the transfer of the stock, and effective June 1st, Mercedes has taken over the company. We've worked with them from the startup of the new team that's here to help facilitate needed management changes and policies as we transition to the new ownership of the company. And so far, things are progressing well. We still have a long way to go, but things are progressing well. The next item that I had was the fare-free bus service. We had the Mass DOT, we applied for a grant for fiscal year '24 to provide fare-free transportation. We selected the 6 months that we were mandated was the most that we could go. We did April through September during the busy season to see how it would affect traffic flow and ridership during this time. And we saw an immediate success of the program. Having the fare-free, the thought of it was not to provide free fares to the passengers, but it was also to get cars off the road, which we all know right now hasn't been fun. We've provided a lot of transportation, and if we weren't providing this amount of transportation, there would be even more traffic on the road. We've seen, I gave you just some quick data, that we saw an increase in April of 53% ridership. May saw an increase of 81% ridership. June jumped up to 83.4% ridership. July has seen an increase of 60%. Currently, we're sitting at 76,000 rides in July alone. We're projecting now out to about 97,000 rides just in July. We did have a meeting in Boston yesterday to discuss this. The results have been sent to the FTA to show how well it's worked here on the island. And we were awarded with a continuous grant, Tri-Transit 3.0, to continue out through December 31st to provide the service till the end of the calendar year. The State House is now working on the budget that has been approved by the House of Senate the governor needs to sign, and there will be funding as it stands right now to continue the service in the same manner throughout fiscal year '25. So we're just waiting on the governor's signature on that. We'll apply for the grant to continue the service and help to keep things going the way they are right now. The next item that I had for you is an innovation grant that NRTA was awarded through MassDOT for expanded service. We are looking to start a new ferry shuttle from the fairgrounds parking lot. As stated, what the process was to get the grant was to be innovative and thinking to what the benefit to your community is. And the benefit here is to try, again, to cut down on traffic and parking issues at the ferries. So we did get the grant. It was awarded. The contracts have been signed. The funding is available to begin. I've attached a, schedule that we've worked out that we've almost finalized to provide the service 7 days a week, year-round, to provide the transportation. It'll cover every one of the boats that come in between the two. The one thing that we do need to work on is a bus stop for the High Line. In the past, when this program was in place before funding ran out, the bus tried to go down to the boat, and it's not a good option to try to get down there. So they were using a stop along on Easy Street near Vineyard Vines, just to drop off, pick up the people and leave, and then go to the steamship. So we're gonna have to finalize everything, get approval to put in a bus stop back there. But I think it'll be a great benefit to the workers that come over in the morning to get them over to the lots, and to other people that don't have the ability to get parking in town, that we can provide, starting with the one lot, and we'll see how it goes and look for other options as it moves forward. So I'll give you updates when we finalize the schedule. We did lease 4 vehicles that's going to be providing the service. They've been delivered to New Bedford. We're just working on the logistics of getting them over here because of the ferry's not an easy thing to bring over this many vehicles at once. So we're in the process of probably within a week of getting those vehicles here to get ready to start the service. And finally, it's just an update that I have to update you on our capital expenses for fiscal year '24. We're in the midst of closing out our year, and the audit will begin. NRTA expended $6.85 million in capital projects in the past year, which is a giant leap from the previous year and much higher than the year prior to that. The highlights of the projects were the purchase of 2 new houses for the workforce development that we started with housing for the employees. So we did purchase 2 new homes that we're in the process of finishing out the houses right now. We also purchased 5 electric buses, and it was in the range of like $1.3 million for the 5 buses that have been in service. They've been performing great. We haven't had any issues with them. So that has been a big bonus to add new vehicles to the fleet. I think it's a bonus to the neighbors that live along the routes. They're all running in the Mid-Island, My Comet routes, where the road's very tight. Along with that, we purchased 2 battery electric vans that are about to be delivered that complement the 3 that Mass DEP funded that are also would be delivered in the next week. These from the DEP will also help with the shuttling of the ferry service, and the other 2 vehicles will be for Island Ride, to have electric-powered vehicles for that. We've also done bus stop amenities, preventative maintenance parts, supplies, shop equipment for the maintenance facility, upgrades to the tracking system and communications for all the buses. Electrical infrastructure projects have begun to tie the 10 level 2 chargers and 2 level 3 chargers that were also purchased with this funding. It's all of this funding that we have is integral in the rebuilding of the company to modernize what we have there. And we are going to continue on this year to add more projects as funding becomes available. And that's it. I have nothing else. If there was any comments.
Questions from the board, comments?
I just have one simple question. When are the remainder buses going to be electrified, like jetties?
We have
Nantucket?
currently right now, we have a federal grant that when I was in Boston yesterday, that's just within weeks of being approved for another $4.2 million to purchase 6 more electric buses. We still have another grant for low emissions that we're working on trying to repurpose that funding. But right now the funding is going to be approved within a week or 2 weeks for the purchase of 6 more vehicles that will be fully electrified.
Okay. Tom?
Gary, the purchase of the 2 houses and the electric buses, those were largely, almost completely through state grants, correct?
All those items were completely through state grants.
That's fantastic.
They were completely funded by Mass DOT. One of the houses was through a different grant through the state, but it did not affect our line item or anything from the town. It was completely covered.
Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
Pat?
Yeah, I want to say, some of us have been dreaming about some of these things for 20 years, 25 years, and it's amazing that you've done it all in the first year. You've done so much of it in the first year, it's amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I agree. One comment I wanted to make is about the ferry shuttle. I mean, I think that I'd like to remind people that you can drop off your family members at fairgrounds when this is running and avoid having to drive. It's not just for people who want to park and leave, it's also for people who are coming in from other places and can just avoid that parking lot down by the High Line every time they take someone
Yeah, the
or pick
buses are
someone
going
up
to
from the
be,
ferry.
they're going to be running every 20 minutes from 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And they can also help along with the route along there. It's not going to be a closed door policy at all. I mean, they can stop at the other stops as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Gary.
Okay.
Really appreciate everything you're doing.
Down at the High Line, when we did that, when we first did it, was 5 or 6 years ago, whatever it is now, but it was packed. The first 2 boats in the morning and that 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, going back at night, were packed. And I remember, then they would fill up a bus or 2 or 3 and have to come back again.
There'll
So
be
I think you're gonna-
adjustments
It's
as
going to
it-
be really popular.
I mean, it's hard that the ferry schedule adjusts so much, so we'll have to adjust, but even through the winter time, we're gonna, the first boat out, the 610 coming over, it's all the workers, they need a way to get where they don't have to worry about walking down to the Greenhound to catch the bus. If we have the bus right there for them, we can bring them to where they have to go. We'll make sure that the 435, when they return during the winter time, but it will be a year-round grant, and there's funding to cover all the labor costs, marketing, everything that we need to do to market this as well.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Just
Thanks so much.
For us to think about, even in the wintertime, there's no parking because people long-term park in that lot. We don't control that lot or own it, but I think we should probably ask again about that, because if we have a bus down there, it could enable people to actually shop down at the AMP or Stop and Shop downtown and go downtown again more than we did. You would go down and people just gave up. I had a lot of complaints last winter even, because the cars that were there never moved. And so something for our board to think about when we hit fall.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no other business that I'm aware of. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks so much, Gary. Appreciate the update. Okay, I am now going to move on to the July 24th Select Board meeting, which I will call to order at 5:43, if I get my clock reading correct. PM, there are no changes to the agenda that I'm aware of. Announcements. Rick, how did we decide to do this? I'm going to say, Select Board meeting is being audio and video recorded, and then I'm going to ask Erica to walk through the 2 committee vacancy announcements. Please.
Great, thank you. So this is when we just announce everybody's names for the applicants. This is pursuant to the board's committee appointment process. We have a couple of vacancies on the committee program, a capital program committee. We have 1 seat available and 2 applicants, who are Peter Kaiser, who's the incumbent, who applied late, and then Joseph Plandowski. Council for Human Services, we have 1 seat available, and we are still looking for applications for that. So if anybody is interested, please submit your application or reach out to me. Council on Aging, 2 seats available and 1 applicant, Arlene O'Reilly, who is the incumbent who applied late. Cultural Council, 2 seats available and 1 applicant, Jack Bulger. Nantucket Historical Commission, 2 seats available and 3 applicants, who are Linda Williams, Diane Coombs, and Sarah Noel McLean. The Real Estate Assessment Committee, 2 seats available and 1 applicant, Thomas Barada, who is the incumbent who applied late. And then the Scholarship Committee, there are 3 seats available and 2 applicants, Jackie McGrady and Ann Brodus. And then you're going to be accepting a resignation later in this agenda, so we're getting a jump on that vacancy for the Conservation Commission. Applications are going to be due on August 16th at noon. We will be announcing the applicants' names at the meeting on August 21st and September 11th. And any applicants can come in and review their applications, and then you'll be making the appointment on the same meeting, and that's September 25th. And the reason for the long, lengthy thing is we're on our summer schedule, plus we have a special town meeting in the middle. So it's just the way it worked out.
Thanks, Erica. A reminder, again, we're doing this every week. If you're interested in making your voice heard on the proposed wheel strike vehicle restriction, speed restrictions, there's information in the packet on how to do that. There will be no select board meeting next week. It's the 5th Wednesday of the month. Any comments or announcements from this board? Nope. Okay. Now's the opportunity for public, oh, no, I'm sorry. We're going to do follow-up on comments from prior select board meetings. And this is a summary of all of the public comments and questions that came out of the joint Board of Health Select Board meeting on June 25th. And Greg Tivnan's going to I don't think read everything because it's quite lengthy, but make sure everyone knows that what's been answered and where to find it. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Yes, in the packet, there is a 5-page document that is the responses to the June 25th Joint Select Board Board of Health meeting regarding PFAS. There were about 20 questions, at least grouped together, and these questions were vetted by our internal team and our consultants, CDM Smith. And so they are posted in this packet. They are posted on the the town's PFAS page under public presentations by date, June 25th. And we also have our acting public health director on the panel too, John Hedden, in case there are any questions, if anybody has looked at them and has questions. I do want to point out that this past week, our internal team, including Chair Moore, as well as the chair of the Board of Health, Dr. McNabb, met with DEP, and we had a very productive meeting, and we have a commitment from DEP to have a joint public session in early September regarding PFAS. And if you have any questions, Madam Chair.
Any questions from the board? Okay, all right. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to open public comment. As a reminder, public comment is for items that are not on the agenda, and the Vineyard Wind situation is on the agenda. It comes up toward the end of the agenda. So anyone who has public comment on items not on the agenda. Megan?
Hi, thank you, Megan Perry, for the record. I just wanted to let everybody know in the public and on this board that on August 1st, Thursday, there will be a panel discussion regarding PFAS at the Dreamland. Tickets are available at the Dreamland. It will be at 5:30. We have David Abell from the Globe acting as the moderator. We will have Kyla Bennett there. We'll have Graham Peasley there. We'll have a whistleblower there who we can't say who it is just yet, but you'll find out. And we will have Eric Olson there. These are all PFAS experts. They will be discussing PFAS in well water. They'll be discussing any kind of PFAS questions people might have. There'll be a question and answer session as well. Everybody is invited to come in the community. And again, it will be held at the Dreamland. Tickets are available on their website. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Megan. I have one hand up online. Campbell, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. I wasn't home yet, but I did hear on the radio I had asked about the website, and I did hear that. So I really appreciate your following up on that. And I did get a note from Erica regarding the roads update for the GIS map on the roads. So really appreciate all of that. And I just had a quick question, obviously not to be answered now, but I know if at town meeting this spring, we voted to ask the state court for housing. Anyway, I'm not sure what we called it, but we were going to get a housing court or something. And I just wondered if at some point it would be possible to update that. I know in June, I believe it was mentioned that a letter had been sent. So maybe it's too soon to know anything, but I just wanted to follow up and see where that was. So thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Campbell. Okay, there's no new, is that it? Any other public comment?
I'll ask a question on this one. I wanted to understand a little more about what NOAA had said, and I wanted to know if there is somebody who is speaking to NOAA themselves, if there's a representative. I noticed there's several people that you can email and do all that, but is there somebody that the town has spoken with who is going to come here and look at all this? What about the EPA, the Environmental Protection?
Ellen, what are you referring?
All right, I'm sorry, let's go back to NOAA. NOAA is for this insane 10-knot speed limit.
Okay, we're scheduling a meeting next week to speak to officials on we've been working on outreach to the federal government. And I
But
know
that
I'm not
won't be
supposed
an
to answer
open,
these.
or will that be an open meeting?
I'm not sure yet. I think it's administrative, not open yet. But
Okay.
we'll let you know.
Okay, now we'll move on.
I forgot I wasn't supposed to answer. Got caught up there a second. Okay, so no new business that I'm aware of. Next up is approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts. Any questions on pending contracts or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All four?
Yes, all four, and I'll make a comment about the airport after, but let's approve them.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, that's unanimous. Matt, comment?
No, just my comment is page 43 and page 45. When we sign these things, it certifies that the airport can do what it wants and that we can't influence the airport, and it is there. Where's page 45? It is there for, it's basically, it's there for the flying public and et cetera, et cetera. It really, we really, I do this, I approve this grudgingly because I know we have to and they need the money, but it just is a little unnerving. I feel like when we sign this sometimes, when later on we all say, geez, how about this, how about that? And we're not allowed to because of some of the things we say in here. We sign these, every time we sign these, we are assenting. We're saying things like, where's page 45? The airport, where's the select board? Airport operates for the aeronautical benefit of the public, aeronautics division, uses intended, such aeronautical use is explicitly approved. We can't impact those uses. There's a bunch of comments in there that every time I read it, I get a little uneasy because when we try to influence some of this later, it sometimes is difficult. So I just bring that up every time as a general comment. I don't have a solution to it. Someday maybe I will, but that's all.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Anybody else? Okay. Next up, Erica, do you want to run us? I believe this is simple, right? We're accepting the resignation.
Yep, so Mark Beal has resigned from the Conservation Commission. You just need to have a motion to accept his resignation, and it's already been filed with the town clerk. So this is just because you're the appointing authority.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Can I not accept it?
Oh, hold on. Malcolm?
Can we not accept it?
What would happen if I did?
He has stepped down, so this is more of a formality than
formality.
anything, so that we can move forward with with filling that seat.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation and to advertise, which I think you already did,
Is there a second?
and thank him for his service.
I'll second it then.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Megan, I'm not going to take public comments on that.
Just curious if you wouldn't mind reading his letter of resignation into the record.
We're accepting the
It's in the
resignation.
packet.
It's in the packet.
Just making sure it was on record. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, real estate matters. Request for approval and execution of purchase and sale agreement, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to let Tracy walk us through it.
Thank you, Chair Brooke. This is Tracy McDonald. I'm the real estate specialist, and this request makes me very happy. It's the oldest yard sale matter on my list. The Hall family kindly granted a one big beach easement in 2007 for access to a very popular beach known as Fisherman's Beach. For years, they have waited for this parcel while it had been tied up in land court. Town council has been able to successfully move it forward, and we received a land court order and plan approval so that we can finally convey the parcel T1 on plan 40795-B to the Hall family in exchange for the one big beach easement they already granted. The Real Estate Assessment Committee unanimously voted to move this matter forward, and the Coastal Resilience also provided a review and assessment. I'm asking the board to vote in favor of this conveyance.
Thanks, Tracy. Any questions or a motion?
Well, just a comment. I reached out because we had some letters from the Surfside neighbors and some other people with some concerns about another area very close to this. And I reached out to, and made sure that this was okay. There were agreements made 12, 15 years ago to add paths, take away potential paths in certain areas and add them in others. In some cases, we were adding them 5 years after someone's death, et cetera. There was all sorts of sort of deals that were struck in return for one big beach easements. And the reason I reached out to Tracy is I wanted to make sure that we are remembering those and honoring those so that we do not lose public access and the neighborhoods do not lose public access. So I think I reached out, and it does seem that we are paying attention to them out there and that Tracy seems to know, but I would love at some point for her to give us an update on what those agreements were and, you know, where it all stands. So, thank you.
Matt, are you talking about that particular area?
It's near there, yeah.
Okay.
It's all along Surfside.
Okay.
There was a whole bunch of stuff done from sort of Surfside Beach down to Nobadeer, and making sure that people had access, taking away a few that were there. And it was very specific, like some of the areas that talked about meandering paths. They didn't just want like one little side of the road kept, you know, the paper street, so that you had a straight shot. They wanted a path that went back and forth so that it was away from the neighbors, but it was also, you know, more scenic and more like it is now. So I just want to make sure that we are honoring that for everybody out there still, that it isn't being, that we're not losing our sort of our memory, our institutional knowledge.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay,
Need a motion.
Are we gonna
we do
move it?
need a motion
Yep.
still, yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Matt, did you
Thank
say?
you.
I said second.
Okay, and aye?
I said aye too.
Okay, thanks. So that's unanimous. Okay, next up is a public hearing of the Nantucket Sewer Commission to consider amendments to the Nantucket Town Sewer District pursuant to Section 10 of the Nantucket Sewer Act regarding Articles 13, 14, and 15 of the September 17th, 2024 special town meeting. This was continued from July 17th. Stephen, do you want to make your presentation? Stephen Morey is the citizen who proposed the articles.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I only want to present for Article 14. I'm
Okay.
not representing 13, and I did not put forward Article 15.
Okay, my apologies. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead,
Okay, sure.
since you're here?
Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I haven't had opportunity, despite outreach for a month, to reach out to members of the sewer department to have some of these questions answered. And I apologize for the lateness of the letter, which hopefully you, at least some of you, have had a chance to read. I sent it just a few hours ago. But I think there were mistakes or oversights on the checklist scoring for the 13 and 13A Woodland Drive properties. And I just want to briefly run through what those points are. Number one, does the property comply with the 2009 master plan? There's a very simple policy statement included in that plan, which reads, include lots in the wellhead protection zone and other environmentally sensitive areas in the sewer district. There was no score given to this question, but I think it's clear that the answer should be yes, because the property is in the wellhead protection zone. And that relates directly to another question on the checklist, which is the property within one of the following overlay districts? And the first one it lists is wellhead. And the answer is no. And I can't understand why the answer would be no, because the property is clearly in the wellhead protection district. In fact, some of the letters you have from neighbors in the surrounding area, they note that fact. So I think the answer to that question should be yes. And then the question number two, or item number two in my letter, is the lot size less than 40,000 square feet? There are two parcels here. I don't know if it would be appropriate to have scoring separately for each of the parcels, but one of the parcels is smaller than 40,000 square feet. And I think it's also important to note that almost half of the property is in the residential 20 zoning district, which means that without any approvals, we could create at least four lots, and each of them would be smaller than 40,000 square feet, and each of them would get a yes on this list. We didn't do that, but it's possible to do, and I'd ask you to consider that. If we have to go through that formality and come back before you at a future meeting, the situation is going to be very much the same as it is today. A couple other relevant points. The rest of Woodland Drive is already in the sewer district, has been for 10 years. None of the properties have been compelled to connect, but they all are. So connecting to sewer would be very much in keeping with the neighborhood. And then just broadly, and without going through the specifics, which I outlined in the letter, much of the opposition from the Surfside Association and other neighbors in the area seems to be related to imposing limits on the number of bedrooms which can be constructed on the property. And that's explicitly counter to the town's policy on how you determine whether to sewer a property. You know, we look at the checklist and we control property use and density and development, actually is the word that they use, through zoning and not through sewer or water, which already exists at the property. And that covers it. I'm here to answer questions if you have any.
Anyone have any questions for Stephen? And then I'm going to ask David Gray to.
Yeah, I would like to hear David Gray.
Okay.
Is what Stephen said about the checklist.
Yep.
Yeah.
David, are you prepared?
I am.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I jumped the gun having Stephen come up before you. Go ahead.
That's all right. Yeah, and Stephen's item one that he just talked about, the zoning, as far as the master plan, was what the zoning regulations were at that time. This article is changing those drastically. So that it would not be in compliance with the master plan once these changes are done. And as far as also as item number one, sewer is only one option in a wellhead protection zone. IA systems can be installed. Again, you are on his item number two, the lot sizes. He's proposing all the lot sizes to be well under 40,000 square feet. But with the change in the drastic change in the zoning, to go back to his, scroll down here, question number 3, it is in a wellhead protection zone, which is, we are aware of that, but that does not mandate sewer needs to be installed. An IA system can also be installed in those areas. Other pieces to this, as I did let Steve know, that there was a lot of other stuff that I was working on to be able to answer questions for him. This area is not in a needs area. Our flows and all of our capacities are rated and based off 2004 and 2014 CWMP, of which this lot is not part of. It's not included in any of those capacity flows. We are also have already put out to bid and awarded a bid for the pump station over in South Valley that does not take any of these flows into account with the update that's going on at that pump station, as well as the updates that are going on at the treatment plant. Did not include any of these updates. They only included what was already listed in the CWMPs as far as capacities and flows. So those were some of the biggest concerns that we had. Is it's not that this lot it's not directly adjacent to, it abuts a zone, to a district, but it abuts a zone or a district that had a private sewer system installed that was ultimately given over to the town, but again, did not take into consideration these excessive flows that could come from this parcel, and or the other parcels that will be coming up as well. So those were the biggest things that on the checklist. And I do have to say that a couple of the checklists, for some reason, whether when it was transitioned over from Word to PDF, some of the yes and no's did move around. But the biggest thing that we have concerns with is the fact that none of this was listed in any of our CWMPs, and those flows were not calculated in any of the designs and the 2 upgrades that we're currently working on now. I don't know if that helps anyone with more questions or comments, but I did know that there's a lot of other comments to come, I believe.
Okay, so hang on, Stephen, I'm going to see if the board has any questions, and then I'll come back to you. Oh, follow up?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that when I say that there's properties that can be created that are less than 40,000 square feet, I'm talking about under the existing zoning. And I think that the policy is that first of all, the checklist says at the top of it, the whole purpose of this checklist is to determine if a property outside a needs area should be added to the sewer district. And so it is true that it's outside the needs area, but that's why we have the checklist. And when you tabulate the score on the checklist, it reaches the requisite 9. And that's supposed to be, I believe, unless there's other extenuating circumstances, that's been the rule and the guideline that the town has followed for years. So again, the properties that can be created that are less than 40,000 square feet are by right, has nothing to do with Article 12 or whatever the other article is, and that should stand on its own. We don't use sewer to control development.
Okay.
So I guess a follow-up to David, is that correct? If we weren't looking at this from the 5,000 square foot perspective per lot, we were looking at it from the 20,000 square foot for the parcel that is 20,000, would this score differently?
The score could change a little bit, but the checklist doesn't automatically mean that they could be put into a sewer district. In the past, we've had other articles that have either met the 9 or just over the 9, yet still were not put into the district because of other circumstances. I mean, this again is it's tying into a system that has not been assessed by anyone to see if these extra flows can be handled by it. And we also have not seen any proposed sewer plans on how this parcel would be served. Again, of concern to us, as ultimately any kind of sewer extension nowadays or that goes along ultimately has to be turned over to the town through a dedication agreement within a year. We haven't seen any other documentation on how or where anything would connect.
Okay. Dawn?
Through you to David, if there wasn't a zoning change proposed, let's just assume that that doesn't exist or isn't going to pass, and this was zoned as it currently is and could be 4 dwelling units. Is there not capacity for 4 dwelling units to be added to the sewer district in this location?
Again, a question that could have 2 sides. You could have 4 dwelling units. Each one could have a secondary dwelling, as is allowed on most zones.
Not if it's under the covenant.
But the flow capacity for I don't even know if Richmond's sanitary sewer that was installed for their development could handle other flows that could come from, if not this parcel, other parcels in the area. It's just that there's unknowns there that we still need to have more information on, assessments and plans, et cetera.
So my question would be, normally when someone asks to be added to this sewer map, do they come with that level of detail, or is it a request like this first?
A lot of them do come with even basic plans to show how they're going to connect. One of the minimum things that we at least ask for is an assessment letter from an engineer that will say that the X pipe that this other pipe wants to connect into has the capacity, can handle the extra flows. This area is also a little different in where a lot of areas that might have gravity flow systems, it would be a different type of connection. This is going to have, it could have up to 30 something extra. I can't remember what the total number was. I have it on my thing here. Each structure is going to end up having to have a pump system. I'm just trying to pull up the Steve's plan that showed how many units there were.
40.
And again, that takes in, you get a lot of the system that was installed in Richmond was designed specifically by a firm vendor for a specific type of pump. This was something that we also ran into with the Schimmel project. We couldn't mix match any kind of pump systems just because of different head pressures and volumes, et cetera. So there's still a lot more information that I think we need for this to be able to move forward.
Yep. Stephen?
I would be more than happy to see the list of requested information, and it's why I reached out a month ago to begin this dialogue so that we could be prepared to have some of these answers for you. Our engineer believes, based on review of the publicly available information about the sewer lines that are in the Richmond development, that there is sufficient capacity. But again, I don't know the specific questions and concerns that David has, and I'd like to have that dialogue with him and determine what the best way to do it is. There is another option going down, I'm going to get the name wrong, Gregland, I think, which isn't, wouldn't be directly through the Richmond development, but there are other avenues to get toward Old South Road if that's the direction we need to go. There's also, the potential benefit, the environmental benefit of connecting the rest of Woodland Drive, which was determined that it should be added and should be sewered. And those, if we look back at Board of Health minutes over the last 10 years, there's discussion about the necessity of sewer in the area and the insufficiency of the IA systems that are there. So this is an opportunity to to make that right, to make it better. Again, I would just go back to the checklist and say, this does meet the criteria, and the technical aspects that David raises, I don't have the answers for you. I'm not qualified to have them, but we can get them.
Okay, thank you. David, did you want to go over the other two articles as well? Just review them quickly for us, since they're all three.
We can. The 44, I think it's 44 Skyline is the other one. This one came to town meeting last year, a little over a year ago, and did not pass the criteria and did not pass the town meeting. Again, the same concerns were. Let me pull up that sheet to go over here. Just trying to get that other sheet pulled up. Hold on a second. Why is this not working? Okay. So the checklist that's in the checklist that's in the packet for Skyline is almost identical to the same checklist that was submitted for the last town meeting, which just came forward for, stating a lot of the same concerns that I just went over now. As far as this property, again, that was another one where we had not gotten a lot of information up front as to, again, sewer design systems. I mean, these systems are pretty complicated, especially when it comes to pumps. Being able to match the exact pumps, the pump curves, the pump flows. Again, that this lot was not part of the CWMPs as well, as far as flows and capacities to those. And the pump station that all of this would connect to over in South Valley has been awarded for an upgrade, but that construction has not started. So that pump station is still working on the basics on the proposed total capacity flows that Richmond had proposed. That's what the design was based off of. And this is going to add, again, some additional flows, not outrageous 300,000 gallon a day flows, but still flows that were not put into the equation for the capacities and the abilities for the pump stations.
Okay, thank you. Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, when do we have to, this is basically, we're discussing whether this is a 50% vote or a 2/3 vote, correct?
It has to be done today.
It has to be done today.
It has to be done today,
All right,
yeah.
So,
Yep.
so there's no, so my suggestion would be that we accept the recommendations and let Stephen talk with David Gray, and if it changes and they bring it to town meeting, then they'll convince 2/3 of the people. That would be so I'd move that we accept recommendations.
Okay, hold on. It's a public hearing.
All right.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in the public hearing?
Lemberg, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Could you just state your name again? I didn't.
Edwin Lemberg,
Okay,
12
thank you.
Skyline Drive.
Thank you.
I think you should know the history of the destination where the flow is going. First, it's, I believe, is going to a pump house in Norshop, and maybe David Gray could confirm that.
Correct.
Okay. The development in Norshop was begun in 1987. It went belly up because of the economy. But when it came to fruition several years later, a force main pump station was created to take the flow to the sewer plant. Richmond proposed in their subdivision presentation that the sewage, the effluent would be going to the Norshop, property, and they also stated, public record, that they, at their expense, would provide a new pump. Now, EPA, and sorry for the pun, but trumps state and local regulations, mandates that there be 2 pumps in a pumping station like that with a force main. The question is, are there 2 pumps? And as we discussed, the added flow is an issue, maybe. In addition, Richmond has constructed a number of buildings in the rear, apartment-style buildings, which bedroom count, I don't know, and that should be taken into consideration. I think that there should be maybe an independent review of the pump house and the flow that might be going into it. And lastly, the lines that Richmond installed when they initially started the project, we don't know what the capacity is there. I mean, they had an engineer design the plan at least 8 years ago, and who knows what the size of those lines are and whether they can accept with this new proposed subdivision, plural subdivisions. That's it. Any questions from me?
Madam Chair, I can answer some of his questions.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to let David
Fine.
answer some of your questions.
It's correct that the existing pump station over in Noshop, constructed in 1986 privately. It was later taken over by the town, and it is currently a triplex station, which means there are 3 pumps in that station. All 1986 vintage equipment, which is part of the coming up upgrade that was designed by Hazen and Sawyer Engineering, and that contract has been awarded to a contractor for work this coming fall.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, David.
This is my question, then.
I'm sorry?
I said that answers my question.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Okay, terrific.
And David, just a question, David, and didn't Richmond contribute about 800,000 or 900,000 toward that pump station, or did that not happen?
They did contribute a number, which has not been finalized, but we did have to go back to town meeting for supplemental funding to get the project out to bid, as the numbers came in 4 or 5 times higher than anticipated. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Online, Matt Peel?
Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate letting me speak. I just like to just make a note also. I commend Stephen, what he's trying to do with the affordable housing. I think it's very admirable, but unfortunately, we just don't believe that this is the best neighborhood to do it in. Along with this, and I'd just like to let you guys know I'm on the board of the Surfside Association, Neighborhood Association, and at our monthly meeting earlier this month, we did vote unanimously to oppose this article. So there are many neighbors in the neighborhood, year-round and seasonal, that do oppose this development and the sewering of these properties, whether it's going to be 4 houses or 40 houses or apartments. And so I just wanted to get that on the record, and I hope you guys got to see the letter. I didn't see it in the packet from our president, Tom, as well. Thank you.
Yeah, it's in the packet, yes. Thanks, Matt. Okay, pleasure of the board at this point. Any questions? Do you want to hear anything else? Art, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Arthur Gasparo. I would just like to very briefly speak and not belabor this, and keep it really to the checklist and some of Mr. Maury's points, because I very much disagree with him. The point of that he could create the 4 lots, only approximately 1/3 of this particular property is within the R2 district. I think it's very important to realize that the other 2/3 are within the LUG 2 zone of 80,000 square feet. So the entire lot is what's proposed to be added to the district. So I think it's rather disingenuous to state that you could come back and then somehow do a subdivision and then get the point that changes this. And I think that your sewer director and your chief health environmental officer that combined worked on this checklist got it right. And that there, what we really have to be looking at is to the point of, you know, that we don't use sewers for control and development. You likewise don't use them to create the development when you don't have the environmental need. And simply the only environmental need that's being claimed here is being on the southern end of the public wellhead watershed district, protection district. Again, documented groundwater flow to the south away from the town lots. Back 20 years ago, when many of us in this community were faced with the significant cost upgrades of the wastewater treatment plant, there are now sewer capacity utilization fees that didn't used to be. This is the reason for having this. It's most important that the districts be expanded very thoughtfully and carefully to best protect Nantucket's natural resources. And we still haven't sewered, you know, that allows for perhaps Masquetuck, the creek. You've got Somerset, where you have areas of poor soils. None of that exists here. You have outwash plain, good soils, proper, exceptional distance to groundwater. Again, there's really not, regardless of the development side of things, considering the sewer infrastructure and the capacity of the infrastructure, environmental benefit, these properties simply don't meet that criteria. And as the Board of Sewer Commissioners, I would respectfully ask that you do not support the articles. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Final word, Stephen, and then.
Thank you. I just want to say to the point about potential overtaxing of the infrastructure, that point has not been demonstrated. Nobody, even including David, has said that adding these lots would overtax the infrastructure. We heard, we don't know, and it might. And for a month, I've been trying to have the dialogue so that we could provide the information that would be necessary for you all to make a decision. And instead, what we have is David has admitted that there were mistakes on this checklist, and he didn't say that we had 9, but we do. We have 9. You know, how could you make a mistake that says the property's not in a district when it clearly is in a district? I mean, it defies belief that that was a mistake, and that you can't get an audience with somebody when you outline in an email, hey, I think there's an error here and we should talk about it. You know, this is not the way public policy is supposed to be done. So, you know, before you set precedent here with, you know, Mr. Peel and others have made the case that this shouldn't be added because it's a way to control development. That's not the way we've done it in the past, and I would ask you not to make that precedent here tonight.
Thank you, Stephen. If there isn't any other public comment, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, the public hearing is closed. Questions, comments, pleasure of the board.
I have a question for David. David, will you meet with Stephen between now and town meeting? And sort this out?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I find both you guys reasonable, and I would think that that can be understood prior to town meeting.
So for the public's interest, the issue at hand for the board is whether we set a 50% plus 1 margin for this vote, or a 2/3 plus 1 margin. And Erica, can you remind us what the motion would be? Do you remember?
I believe, well, you would either make a motion to provide a negative recommendation or a positive recommendation.
Okay,
A
so
positive recommendation only requires majority vote. A negative recommendation requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting.
Okay, great. Pleasure of the board?
Well,
I'm a little bit reluctant to make a decision if there's a potential discrepancy. I would just rather have them work it out administratively before we go with something that there's an argument over. I just don't know that that's good policy. Otherwise, I generally will always go with the recommendation that comes out of the sewer, but it concerns me that that they didn't meet. And that should have happened before it came to us. So I think they still should meet before we make a decision.
Unfortunately,
we've gotta make
we
a
have to
decision.
finish it tonight to meet the timeline for town meeting, for special town meeting. So we're a little between a rock and a hard place.
Well,
Malcolm?
yes, I heard good arguments on both sides. I just don't see at this point an environmental need right now for it, and we don't have the information. And you talk about the checklist. I remember there have been times where there were 9s, and we still turned it down based upon other reasons. So the checklist and the scoring is essentially a guideline for us. And it's not a firm thing. So I would not accept this at that time.
Okay.
And if they want to get together between now and town meeting, that's their right. But I would certainly vote against this now.
Okay. So is that a motion?
I move that
It's a motion not to adopt.
not to adopt.
Okay.
Sorry, is that for all 3 articles in line with the recommendations?
Yes, I can amend the motion to all 3 articles.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm opposed. I mean, I think it should be tabled until it can actually be recommended without arguments.
Yeah, my thought on it is if there's a meeting of the minds between now and then, David can speak at town meeting and Stephen can speak, and we all can speak at town meeting and put our weight behind it one way or the other if there's a meeting of the minds, but we have to make our decision. We aren't talking about the zoning right now, but I think what I hope doesn't get lost in the opposition to Stephen's project is the validity of the zoning, the neighborhood, the pocket neighborhood, the small cottages that he's proposing is, I would love to see it here at Tacoma. I would love to see it at Surfside Crossing. It's what I am modeling my employee housing at the corner of Rugged Road and Fairgrounds on. So he has got something that would be a great place to live, because my employees and my wife's mom are living, all close with a lot of green space and shared parking, and it really works, and it's a really great place to live. So I would hope that what he is trying to do is not lost on the community in the midst of this. So, because I think what he's trying to do is something that we really need to explore and in the proper areas and follow, so.
Madam Chair, can I make one more? I'm sorry.
Dawn?
No, I just wanted to say that I don't actually think, considering all of the circumstances around this, that it will pass at town meeting, whether it's by 50% or 2/3, without a lot more information going into it. What really concerns me is that there wasn't a meeting afforded to a citizen who's bringing forth an article. So that's what doesn't sit right with me.
I don't disagree with that. I think we should always have communication. If I ever have time in the next few months, I may work on an article that deals with sewer and development, because they sometimes are in conflict with each other. And I think as an island, we have to figure that out. We need sewering, but we don't need unmanaged development. So it's something we should be thinking about.
All right. Okay, thanks, everybody. Okay, so moving on, it says Town Manager's Report, but I'm going to manage the section of the agenda, and this is follow-up on the Vineyard Wind blade failure. And I'd like the folks from GE who are here to identify themselves, so I just know where you are. There you are. Okay, I didn't see you back there. Hi. Okay, so we have representatives from GE Vernova here in person with us tonight. I'm going to open this section of the agenda by reading a statement, which is a follow-up statement following the Select Board's executive session yesterday regarding the Vineyard Wind GE situation. So the town of Nantucket Select Board is alarmed by the blade failure at Vineyard Wind 1. We are deeply concerned about the safety, environmental, and economic impacts of this catastrophe on our local residents and visitors to the island. The Select Board is committed to holding Vineyard Wind and GE, the manufacturer of the turbine blades, accountable. We demand 100% transparency from both Vineyard Wind and GE about exactly what occurred during the blade failure and exactly what chemicals and materials are in the debris that has washed up on our beaches and remains in the water column around Nantucket. Vineyard Wind must implement comprehensive measures to prevent such incidents from occurring in the future, and it is imperative that full restitution is provided for the damage caused. Town representatives will meet with the company next week to establish a process for reimbursing the community for costs and damages sustained as a result of the accident and recovery efforts. We are also demanding answers and better coordination from our state and federal partners who have regulatory responsibilities to keep Nantucket Island and our ecosystem safe from such incidents in the future, and who must ensure that proper safety measures, manufacturing standards, oversight, and emergency plans are in place. The emergency has also revealed the inadequacy of Vineyard Wind's coordination and communication required by the Good Neighbor Agreement. Although the town has done its part to honor our obligations, we intend to renegotiate the terms of the agreement in light of this accident. So that is the comment from the board tonight. Bear with me one second. I wanted to make note that we now have a regular output of communications on this evolving situation. As quickly as we're getting information, we are trying to turn it around through our communications office. And there are regular updates on the offshore wind page on the town's website. I want to thank Assistant Town Manager Rick Sears and Florencia Rulo, our communications director, who have literally been working all hours of the day and night to take in and put out information as quickly as we're getting it along the way. So please be, and I want to say that for those of you, and I talk about signing up for alerts from the website all the time, but there is an alert you can sign up called New and Noteworthy, and that gives you an email right away the minute something pertinent is posted in that sort of volume, and that includes these updates. So for instance, at 9:25 last night, there was an update, some information that we got from GE. So we're trying to keep the community informed in a really timely manner. And if you want to know, go on the town website, register, and sign up for New and Noteworthy, because you will get these the minute they come out. And I think that that's critical. I'd like to now invite Vineyard Wind representatives who are online tonight to give us a summary of where we are for those who haven't been following in terms of what's happening with the debris collection, et cetera. Who from Vineyard Wind wants to pop on? Oh, you're here. I forgot you were going to be here. Too many things to keep track of. Go ahead, just identify yourself for me again.
I appreciate it. It's Richard Smith for Vineyard Wind. Madam Chairwoman, Vineyard Wind has been committed to providing the 100% transparency that you were mentioning a moment ago. As you know, we provide daily reports to the town. We've been working very cooperatively with the town to provide that information and to trying to make sure that the citizens of this island get timely and important information about the safety and potential environmental impact from the situation. We will continue to do that and have been working very cooperatively with you, as well as the local and federal regulators and the Coast Guard that are all involved in the situation. In terms of the cleanup and the question that you just asked, we have several teams that are committed to cleaning up here on the island. We have been taking calls, we've been taking information through our website and from our hotline on where there may be debris around this island and other islands surrounding. When we get that information, we dispatch the team to that location. Sometimes it's a false report. Other times there's actual debris from the G blade. Whenever we spot debris, we're picking it up, we're collecting it, we're quarantining it so that we know how much debris has been collected by our teams. And we continue to ask the public to help us out with that situation so that we know where that debris is as they see it. And also so that the public isn't trying to handle the debris themselves, because we have these teams that are out there to do that very thing. It also helps us to be able to collect that and know how much is there. What we're finding now is that the reports of debris are, they're shifting a bit. And when I say they're shifting, what we're seeing now is that when we go out to look for debris, we're seeing other things. We're seeing trash in the water, we're seeing trash on the beaches. Yesterday, there was a report of debris. We went out and there was a Mylar balloon that said happy anniversary on it. It's not something that came from the blade. In all of these instances, however, we are picking up what we're finding. We're picking up the trash, we're picking up the debris, we're quarantining that which we are finding to make sure that we are cleaning up when we're hearing about things. So our invitation to the public would be to continue to let us know when they see something. All of those reports are being followed up on.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
Any other questions from the board for Vineyard Wind? Okay, not at this time, thanks. And then next, I'm going to ask folks from GE to give us an update on the condition of the tower, the turbine, and the situation out there. And then also, well, just walk through the things that we talked about. Erica?
Can you please make your reminder about people not speaking while other people are speaking?
Oh, yes. Please refrain from cross-talking. If you need to have a conversation with someone, if you would step out of the room. It's distracting to us and to others who are trying to listen to the speakers. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Martella.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Roger Martella with GE Vernova. I had the opportunity to participate last week virtually and appreciated the chance to do so because we heard a lot of comments, we heard a lot of questions, we heard a lot of concerns. We've heard those loud and clear, and we've taken them very seriously. In the last 7 days, we've spent really looking at each of the concerns, the comments, and the questions, kind of focusing on what our impression has been top of mind for the community, engaging, focusing on safety first and foremost, wanting to be supportive where we can with our partners with Vineyard Wind, and looking to be sharing information as much as possible. We've appreciated the rhythms with you to share information, with Governor Healy's administration, with the partners in the federal government. And I'd like to share some updates today in that spirit of safety and support and sharing, because we've had a couple developments since the last week when we were getting acclimated to some of these issues and hearing these questions and concerns, all of which are very serious comments, very serious questions, very serious concerns that we've taken seriously. And I think the three things we've heard from you and from your constituents and from the community are concerns about the environmental conditions of debris that they've seen on the shore and in the water, concerns about the condition of the blade that's on the turbine, and then some understanding of root cause assessment of what happened to the blade and how are we taking measures to make sure that this does not happen again. So I'd like to perhaps, with respect, walk through each three of those if I can share some updates, and I will be here and happy to take questions and hear further comments and hear further questions, and those we can address tonight we will take back and continue to share an update. So maybe I could start with the assessment of the environmental conditions of the debris. That has been, I think, a top of mind issue for the community on the shore. That was referenced by Vineyard Wind in terms of what they've been gathering, what we've been working with them as well with teams to gather and address. So what we did immediately was engage an independent environmental consultant. We wanted to make sure we had an independent set of expert eyes on this, working independently. So we worked with an environmental consultant group called Arcadis that has a global reputation for being a leader here. And they have employed what I would think of as a risk assessment, a preliminary risk assessment at this point, which we were able to share with you last night, that is aligned to Massachusetts regulations for how they look at these types of situations. So they followed a standard methodology. It's called a conceptual site model. And they looked at the things like the material safety data sheets. They looked at analogous situations and other types of materials. They even did some research into our own blades and other opportunities where we've had to retire blades and how we've addressed them and what those assessments have been. So they have a few conclusions. We've shared these in the executive summary, which I think is posted on your website. And I think the first conclusion, and perhaps the most important one, the near term goes to the most significant risk we see is the physical risk. It's the risk of people coming into physical contact with the materials, the fiberglass, the foam. This is the kind of foam you see in chairs and things like this, and the balsa wood. I was very struck. There was a doctor last week who spoke. I apologize, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about how he had treated people with fiberglass splinters and things like that, and he described the types of risks something like fiberglass can impose. So we take that very seriously, and we thank the community for taking it seriously. We want to echo our colleagues from Vineyard Wind that we really ask that folks, if they see debris, please call the hotline. We have teams who are walking the beaches every day, but they will come, they will gather, they have personal protective equipment, and we will make sure that's handled in an appropriate way. So I understand there's been, great stories from the communities, lifeguards and others wanting to address this, and I think that's really something that should be respected and admired, but we also want to make sure that we're taking those protective positions and that we're the ones with our teams out there gathering debris. So that was identified as probably the most significant risk right now. They also looked at, I'd say, the toxicological perspective of this. We heard some concerns last week about the chemicals, the chemical nature, the risks there. The report goes into some detail, but on that confirms that the debris you're seeing, the foam, the fiberglass, the balsa wood, is inert, it's not soluble, it's not toxic, it's stable. It's the kind of thing that it could be disposed of in a regular landfill. We're going to come up with a disposal plan, so I'm not implying that's what we're going to do, but it can be categorized in that way, the type of materials you would see on a recreational boat, in textiles and things like that from a toxicological perspective. And then the third comment we got regarded PFAS. And so we wanted to take a very close look at the concerns and the questions regarding PFAS. And I want to share with you kind of what we learned and what we've been able to identify there. And I want to say at the outset, the materials that we've seen on the shore, in the water, the foam, the fiberglass, the wood, those do not contain PFAS. The coatings of the blade do not contain PFAS. The blade itself, the main part of the blade, does not have PFAS. There are something called aeroderivative add-ons, which are about 6-inch by 7-inch components that we add onto the blade. There's, I think, 240 of them. They're near the top, near the root of the blade. And yes. Oh, sure. Thank you very much. We have a photo. I appreciate that. And these aeroderivative add-ons do have a small concentration of something called PTFE, if I recall correctly. Some people think of it as Teflon, which can also be characterized as PFAS in them. Now, we've looked at this very carefully. The percentage, if you consider the percent, is 28 grams. If you consider that with the weight of the blade, it's 0.00005% of this Teflon type material. But I'm just sharing all this as facts. I'm not trying to draw conclusions from that because I know this is a serious concern for the community. It's something they take seriously. I will tell you that we still see many of these add-ons on the pictures of the blade. We can't see the whole blade, so we can't tell you exactly how many. We don't know how many are on the landing, but that's something we will continue to look at. But I just want to emphasize the first point, not part of the debris that we've seen, the foam, the fiberglass, or the balsa wood. So we want to share those facts as we know them. So that's our understanding of the environmental assessment, and we can answer questions on that. We have Arcadis on the phone if we want to go into detail and things like that. And I want to mention one more thing before I move on from the environmental assessment. This is the work we've done in the last 7 days. What we've focused on is what we've heard as at the top of mind concerns from the community, the situation of the debris that they've seen. We are not here to say that we have completed a full analysis of the long-term, ramifications of any debris that might be on the ocean floor, submerged, degradation, things like that. We know there will be lots of questions about that, and this is step one, addressing the immediate top-of-mind concerns. We will continue a rigorous framework on all those pathways consistent with the types of conceptual site models that Massachusetts and other jurisdictions want to see. So that is to come as next steps. The second thing I wanted to update you on is the condition of the blade itself. I know there's a lot of uncertainty. Is the blade even still there? What is the condition of the blade? And so I just want to address some basics there if I can. This is, I don't remember exactly when this was taken, but this is roughly what you would probably see about now. There's been some developments today I want to share with you. So the blade is still there, and our we are as motivated to have the blade removed at the earliest opportunity as anyone else is, and that is a priority. But I want to go back to something I said at the outset, which is safety. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to continue to mention this in every conversation we have. safety has to be the most important consideration, safety for this community and safety for the people who are going to do the work here to remove the blade. I talked last week, this is a very unusual and rare occurrence. So what we have wanted to do is bring in the best experts, I think, that you can find to help us address this situation. So as of last week, there's a group called Resolve Marine, now based in New Bedford, helping us and others work on this. And just to give you a sense of who Resolve Marine is, you've probably seen pictures of the tragic collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore recently. They were called out to help them deal with demolition and debris in that situation. And so they're now in New Bedford helping us with a plan on this in coordination with the state and federal authorities. So we want to act with urgency here. We want to act with rigorousness, but we have to prioritize safety first and foremost. We took a significant step in the right direction today for the first time. We've been working with our authorities to kind of go through the first steps of a safety plan towards assessing removal, and we were able to execute on that today. I'm relieved that we were able to execute that first step, and I just want to share with you what we were able to do. The first step for us is to make sure, so no one's approaching the blade at this time. It's in a safety exclusion zone, and it's going to be that way right now. What we want to do is before we can have someone approach to even assess it on the ground, we need to make sure that their environment is safe. And so we're able to remotely adjust the blade to some extent. And so in coordination with our authorities, we were able to start today very slightly taking slow and deliberate remote movements of the blade. And the reason we want to do that is we want to, in these slow, minute movements, see if any of the debris might still be loose. And if it is loose, we want to address that because we don't want workers coming and having the risk of debris falling at that time. If we can do it in the daylight with 7 to 9 or 12 vessels around, helicopters in the area, under the right weather conditions, we're able to make those movements in a controlled situation. So if there is loose debris, we're able to mitigate the chance or increase the opportunity for us to address it in real time. So we need the right weather, we need the right light, we need the right vessels there. All of that came together today for the first time. We were able to rotate the blade about 7 or 10 degrees. As you can tell, it's not a super clear day, so we had a brief window to do it. We did not see further debris come, but we're not at the end of this exercise. So we're hoping if the weather cooperates, which it looks like it will tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., we will continue this exercise. And this is an important first step because we can then hopefully confirm that there's not loose debris, which doesn't create a safety issue. And then we're also addressing any loose debris in this very controlled environment. So that's the update we have on addressing the blade, and then we will assess that and we will move forward. I want to reinforce our goal here is to move with urgency, but safety has to trump everything, and we're going to be unapologetic on that point because we don't even want the teams who are thinking about this feeling that sense of urgency. We want them focusing on safety first and foremost, but we do have this better controlled environment now with vessels and helicopters and things to address any materials that come. The third update I wanted to address was we had lots of questions last week about what happened here and what was the cause of this incident. So we did share today our initial assessment of what we call a root cause analysis. And the reason a root cause analysis is so important, it goes to a lot of the questions and concerns we heard, is we need to understand what happened thoroughly so we can work to make sure this doesn't happen again. As I said last week, this was an unacceptable situation, and we have to study this very closely to make sure we do everything we can to learn from this to prevent the likelihood of it happening again. So we shared our preliminary root cause assessment this morning, and it's a combination of two things. One is a manufacturing issue, and the other is kind of an inspection issue. So we did identify what we call a manufacturing deviation. And what that means is, looking at the situation now, some of the adhesives that are supposed to work for the blade did not do their job. The adhesives did not work in the way they were intended to work. So that was the manufacturing deviation part of it. We have quality control mechanisms in place to catch things like this. And what we also found with that manufacturing deviation is that the inspection, which should have caught this, did not. And so it's a combination of those two factors. So what that tells us is a couple things. One, this is not a fundamental design flaw. First of all, it's not a design flaw in the blade. It's not the same issue as Dogger Bank, which was an installation issue that happened at sea. But it also helps us understand what happened to this blade. So what we will be doing as a result of this is we will be going back and looking at all of our offshore wind blades, what we call the Haliade X220 blades, to go through and verify kind of that quality assurance that we do on them, the ones that are on the turbines, the ones that are in New Bedford, and the ones that are yet to be kind of delivered, to make sure that we are doing that quality control check as the next step on each of these, doing it very rigorously. We're going to focus on being rigorous and being thorough versus necessarily doing it fast. And that's our top priority, to address the question of the root cause here and how we, do everything to make sure that we don't see this repeat itself again. So those are the 3 updates I wanted to share with you. I will be here, so happy to take any questions. And again, hearing comments, concerns, so that we can take those back as a team and make sure we continue to address. Our goal for the last 7 days was to address kind of the immediate issues, the top of mind issues we've heard, but we know there's many other things that we'll be working on together, and those we continue to try to make progress on as well.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board first, and then I will open the public comment.
I have one. I could sort of understand how you could check the blades when you're manufacturing it, kind of like making a surfboard. You put a layer on and you can see if it's all tight and everything else. How are you going to do it once because they're so big and they're already installed? Like, that seems, how are you going to ensure that they're all tight and right?
It's a great question, and thank you very much. And it's something that fortunately we do know how to do. So think of an MRI machine. We take incredibly detailed ultrasound pictures of all our blades that come off the assembly line. Many very detailed ultrasound pictures that are non-intrusive in the blade. So we have all of those. And so we are able to look at all those ultrasound pictures for every blade that's on a turbine in Vineyard Wind, that's in the marshaling harbor, and do that deep dive review. We think of it like this: if you were to get an MRI from a doctor and they gave you an opinion or recommendation, you may decide you want to have another doctor look at that same MRI in that amount of detail. So this is that, with even a lot more detail across the blade. So that's the type of inspection we will be doing.
So how do you do an MRI out at sea? Can you take the machine and go up the blade?
No, we have the records. That's done when the blade's manufactured. So that's all stored and presumably in a computer. And so we're able to do that as a desktop exercise.
Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Martella, two questions. I understand that a portion of the blade has sunk to the bottom of the ocean floor. Can you comment on recovery efforts on that portion?
Yes. I think I'd have to turn to my colleagues at Vineyard Wind if you'd like to. My understanding is you've been tracking that with sonar.
We have been tracking that throughout the project. There have been instances where various items have sunk into the ocean floor, and we've been able to recover those. And our expectation is we'll do that here as well.
Got it. And then my second question is, before, when you commented on the documents that you produced that are on the town's website that are in our packet, that the initial root cause has been completed. And I understand that the full root cause analysis needs to be completed before anything is a go, so to speak. If you could comment on what the process is for the rest of the full root cause analysis, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Ranjith, maybe you could walk through kind of where we are in the steps. I think it's an 8 or 10 step process, and you can walk through where we are and what is yet to come, please.
Ranjith Viripullan, Fleet Engineering Leader for GE Vernova. So what we do is we follow an 8-step process, which is called an 8D process, and which is typical in the industry to do the root cause analysis. And where we are is in the root cause phase, which is step 4. Step 4 is the root cause identification phase. And like we explained, we saw the manufacturing deviation, which is part of the root cause investigation. We look at different causes which could have created this issue, and then we go into each of them in details. So looking at the failure pictures, as well as looking at the scans what we have of the blades produced in our manufacturing, we have identified this variation. The next step for us to verify, we call it as verification of the root causes. We would also take the sample, go back to our lab and test it to make sure that we verify it. That's the verification process of it. And that is needed for us from a process perspective to complete the root cause. So that is what we are working on. And then the following step would be corrective action. How do we correct it for the blades produced? And how do we make sure that we prevent it, which means this will never happen on another blade. So those are the steps remaining. Thank you.
Just a follow-up on that, to either, it's fine. I'm assuming you took the pictures and someone checked it, some already. How would you miss, if you were checking that, how do you miss that? Is that a human error? Is that an AI, computer error? Like, who misses that?
That is something that's part of our investigation. We will be focusing on that as part of the investigation. And one thing I'd like to echo our CEO on this root cause analysis and the question, something he has said is we're going to be thorough versus being rushed. And so we are motivated here to be thorough and rigorous and to, as the chair said already, to be transparent as we move forward with these analysis. We're 7 days into this, and so we're trying to share what we can in real time. And there's more to come, but we do have a high level of confidence and conviction in what I've been able to share so far with you today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, oh, gosh, okay. John, Giorgio?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've listened to this presentation very intently, and one thing I did not hear was what kind of risk assessment is being done with respect to marine mammals and other aquatic animals. Is there a risk of ingestion of these pieces? And what is the potential? How would GE and Vineyard address that risk?
Thank you for the question, and we completely agree that needs to be part of the risk assessment, and it is. Our conceptual site model considers the risks to humans, considers the risk to aquatic species, to wildlife from different pathways. And maybe what I should do is ask our colleague Jim from Arcadis to talk about how we're looking at that today and how we're going to be looking at that long-term through various pathways that you mentioned, degradation and things like that. So Jim, if we have you on, perhaps you could share your views on that part of the analysis.
Jim, are you there? There we go. We are not hearing you if you are speaking. Still no sound.
Jim, maybe sign off and try to come back on through the link.
While we're waiting for him, I will just repeat, we do know that is a serious question and something we are addressing in the near term right now, but it is also something that probably is part of that next steps, longer term, assessment as well. But I think Jim, if we can get him, can share a little update of how he has looked at that in the near term and then what he plans to do to address that in the long term from Arcadis.
Okay, while we're waiting for that to sort out, any other questions from the board?
Well, John asked for me, thank him, about the wildlife. Again, it's this term of toxic. I would call fiberglass irritating.
Yes.
Or I just have a problem when everyone keeps telling me there's no toxic materials. I mean, this is not asbestosis, but it is harmful to human beings and potentially harmful to animals and wildlife.
And understand and respect that. And certainly we appreciate the serious reactions to fiberglass, the serious impacts it can have. And it's one of the reasons we're so committed to mitigating the debris. That's one of the reasons we're doing this exercise today. We We want to control what's coming on shore, and we want to be there to address it very proactively when you do see it. And I will just please reinforce, we appreciate all of your good neighbors who are out there trying to pitch in, but we would really strongly encourage folks to please call the hotline. We will get there as soon as possible with the right protective equipment. And please let us handle that to avoid exactly those possible reactions to fiberglass.
John, did you want to ask something else?
I did, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just based on press reports, is it correct that some of the debris has shown up as far north as Truro on the beaches?
I don't have with me here the location of all of the debris. What I can tell you is that there was a list of 6 or 7 islands that we had reports of debris. We sent teams today to those islands to walk the beaches on those islands to see if we could find debris that had been reported. On most of them, we did not find any debris. There were some social media reports of some string-like substances that didn't sound like debris, but we went to the island anyway and walked the beaches, and what we found was seaweed that was string-like, and it was probably what was being reported. I think at this point, as I mentioned before, most of the reports of debris that is out there, as we're investigating them, we're not finding debris. We're finding trash and other seaweed and the like. But that's what I can report on that.
Okay. All right, thank you. I can hear you, Mr. Nuss. I actually heard you turn your light on, so sound is
Okay.
working.
Somewhat, we're getting closer then. Okay, so you can hear me, and I'm not sure I'm on video. Okay. Well,
Yeah, we can see you and hear
I
you.
apologize. Okay, I apologize so much. I'm not sure. I'm technically challenged on this. So the question was, if I remember right, was thinking through the next steps in terms of the eco risk and where do we go from here. So the things that Roger offered, I'll just kind of repeat a little bit. So we've had about a week to pull together every piece of information that we can to find out what we know and what is telling us. And we package that into this conceptual site model approach. And that's all toward trying to put our arms around what are the risks. And I use the Massachusetts contingency plan as guidance for this, but what are the risks that are there potentially for human health, public safety, welfare, and the environment, so ecological. And you do that a number of ways. You do it under a current conditions assessment, and then you also look into the future for what might be foreseeable future uses. So, and that the conceptual site model that we outlined, I recognize it's very simple, maybe too simple, but very simple for the challenges that are being faced here. But it was our starting point. We like to figure out what we know and how it fits together, and then the conceptual model evolves as we gain more information and collect data and study and research. So it's meant to evolve over time. It's like a square wheel that we start to chip the corners off to get it to start rolling. Specific to the question before I couldn't join was how to manage, how to think about the risk going forward. And there is a process. The MCP talks to the risk process. It's very prescriptive. It relies a lot on scientific information, relies a lot on testing. But we don't discount any of the potential risks that might exist out there. It's just a week into it, and we'll need to come back and formulate plans and studies to advance all of the risks that are present, be it human health or ecological. And the last thing I'll offer, and then 2 other questions, but the way that we outlined the conceptual site model was to think about it in present situations, so that, as Roger said, the top of mind concept, what's apparent now from a harm or potential risk. And so we did that present scenario, and that is meant to align with the debris recovery measures. So as those go, we think that's a timing standpoint part of the evaluation timeframe. In contrast, going forward, recognizing that what debris might remain after recovery efforts that will go through processes that will result in degradation of the material. And again, we don't discount or diminish that and need to study it, but that's where we'll get into more of the detailed scientific ecological risk as it relates to degradation of the physical material, dissolution, byproducts, things that that we've heard and recognize need to be advanced as part of the detailed risk characterization.
Okay. I'd like
That
to
helps.
specifically ask, is there any immediate risk to people ingesting shellfish or fish that they catch that have been harvested from our waters? And how would you determine that, and have you considered that yet?
We have not considered that yet. That would be one of the future looking activities. So I'll stop there as
So-
opposed to opining on
Yeah.
a potential risk for shellfish consumption.
So I would say that our community doesn't consider that a future risk. They consider that an immediate risk.
Understood.
Just to, I think, state the sentiment in the room after your remark. So anything else from the board, and then I can open to public comment? Okay, seeing none. If you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please approach the microphones. I'm going to do my best to keep things in order. We've had a few people online with hands up online, so I'm going to do this the way I did it the other night, which is I'm going to take 2 people in the room for every person I identify online, largely because people in the room are on their feet. So, but I am going to start with Meredith Lepre online.
Hi, thank you so much. So I have a couple of questions. One is about the report that talked about Teflon and Teflon being safe. And I think that maybe all of these people from Vineyard, Wind, and GE need to understand that our community is very well versed in PFAS, and we know that Teflon is not safe. So telling us that that is not safe is a lie. And I really don't take being lied to well. So I think we've already had enough experience with it. So I would like them to be honest and have real research. Second is microfiberglass. How are they going to remove that? The shellfish are going to take it in. What are we going to do when it becomes scallop season and all our scallop have microfiberglass in them and we can't eat any of that? So I think they are just doing what the very basic they need to do. And I think there needs to be a much bigger response than what they're doing. People come here to go swimming and go to the beach. I go to the beach. I can't take my kids, my family to the beach when there's microfiberglass in the sand and in the water. And that's a real risk. That's horrible for the community. That's horrible for our economy. And it does not seem that GE or Vineyard Wind is really taking this really seriously. They're telling us that the PFAS is not real and that the fiberglass, apparently we don't know what happens if it goes into the fish or the shellfish. So I think that I would hope our town government and our select board would take a very strong stance against them, and they need to give us better answers.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Oh, hello, Veronica Bonet. First, I'd just like to thank everyone on the select board. You guys are doing a fantastic job in terms of excellent communication on this, so appreciate that. I just have several concerns. I don't know if we're getting questions answered tonight or how this is going to work, but one concern is Arcadis in general. So GE now has hired an supposed independent contractor to investigate environmental issues who makes significant revenue from the offshore wind industry and has all over their website their commitment to the industry. So I don't think that they're incented to have Nantucket's best interest in mind. Even though they do other work for the town, that's very small potatoes compared to their offshore wind business. And with that said, my biggest concern, and the people missing from the room tonight, are our state and federal regulators. I feel like you guys are kind of being left to deal with GE and Vineyard Wind on your own, and I don't know why we're not seeing somebody here from NOAA, from BOEM, from Marine Fisheries, from the State Department of Environmental Protection. I would think there's been an army of people to get these projects approved at rapid speed, not following the rules, and I think that army should be here, and I think you guys should insist on it. Regarding the comments from Arcadis that the materials are inert, lots of things are inert until they're put in different temperatures, in different environments. They're heated up, they're cooled down, they're eroded. Inert isn't really a description of a chemical that doesn't have an impact. Inert is a state of a chemical at the moment. It doesn't remain inert. So I think that that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I mean, all of these particles are going to erode and dissolve into the ocean in one way or another, whether it takes a week or a year. We don't know the answers to that, but to call them inert doesn't seem genuine. And then a question for Vineyard Wind. They have a stop halt on the project, and a question is, are they actually stopped? There's so many boats being seen on marine traffic. Their mariners report today shows that they're doing cable laying, that they're doing a lot of sonar mapping. I don't think they have a current IHA to be doing any sonar work, but they're doing it. And so what exactly is halted? Because there are a lot of vessels out there, and if I were Vineyard Wind, I would only have vessels looking for debris and getting that piece of fiberglass off the ocean floor. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I failed to remind everybody, we do have a 3-minute limit, but if, I will allow second comments tonight, but we're going to keep everybody moving 3 minutes at a time. So, Ellen?
Okay,
Just state your name for the record, please.
Ellen Ray. First off, Vineyard Wind's hotline would be helpful. Maybe they could tell us to it and you could put it on the screen tonight since you have people from home watching this. I don't know how I get a hold of Vineyard Wind if I find fiberglass yet, or any pieces of any debris. Is there an 800 number? Is there a phone number?
So it is on the town website, on the offshore wind page, it's front and center.
Okay.
For the public.
What I'd like to know is how many wind turbines are in place now and how many blades are going to be of concern? Those are my first two questions. Through you.
Okay. I'm going to write them down, and why don't you ask your questions?
Okay.
How many blades are there?
Yep. How many blades are out there now? How many turbines are out there now? And how many blades now are of concern? Those are the first two. What agencies, totally, federal and state, are overseeing this project? The town needs to hire their own supervisor to oversee this, it seems. I'd like to know, the Vineyard Wind has talked about teams. How many people are physically on this island? All I've heard is local people finding the debris, and the DPW. I didn't know that the town had to do anything to clean this up, except that it's an environmental hazard and we want to get it off our beaches as soon as possible. And I'd like to know how many boats are in the ocean out there. This is the first time I had heard this project was totally halted. Is that true or false? There's another question. I don't understand why they're laying cable and all these boats aren't out there looking for the debris. So I want to know how many boats are searching for debris from this company. Okay, any other questions? I still, your good neighbor agreement here, I've just kind of had a gander at this, and there's 4 names listed on this. I'm really angry that this never was a special town meeting, that you all didn't seem to think it was important enough. Now, excuse me, because several of you, half of you aren't even the board that did this. But, and why is Mary Bergman from the Nantucket Preservation Trust on this? I can't understand. This town, the communication you're having with we the people, the employees, this is just terrible that we're going through this now with them because they're not a good neighbor. I would hope that the town will look for a lawyer and also hire somebody to oversee this project that protects us. Because if they're still running cables, then they're not chasing around looking for more debris.
Okay, Ellen.
Okay, and I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. So,
excuse me. I asked last week about what would happen if there was a hurricane. I want to understand, there's 2 blades up there still. They don't even have an exit strategy.
Okay, Ellen, you can come back around, but I'm doing 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Thanks. So I'm going to ask, I can answer the question of how many turbines. There are 24 turbines. Before this accident, 11 of them were commissioned, 13 were still undergoing testing, of which one was the one that had the blade failure. At 3 blades each, that was a total of 72 blades. And if I could just get a nod from someone to confirm that my numbers are correct. Okay, so that's what was told to us in a meeting. So this was one of 72 blades that were out there. Again, 11 towers commissioned and operational, 13 still under testing. And Mr. Martella, do I have that right?
Chair, my notes, that's consistent with my notes. My notes are 24 in the water turbines and 10 operating with 3 blades each, but we're double checking that.
Okay,
Those are my-
so I had
my
heard
notes.
11.
Very
Okay,
close, yes.
okay. Okay.
That's what I just shared.
And can someone answer the question about ongoing work? That we're getting reports of observation of ongoing cable laying and other activities out there? Is anyone available to answer that?
Sure. So the federal government, Bessie, the regulator, the federal government, has been in our offices in New Bedford, working with us hand in hand on this. One of the first things they did was issue a suspension order against most of the work connected with this activity, but not all of the work. So to the extent that there is some work.
Excuse me, folks, please. If you want an opportunity to speak, you will have it, but I ask you to respect the person at the microphone. Thank you.
So to the extent that there is some work going on, and this is not something that would be happening necessarily every day, that is work that's been approved by Bessie, the federal regulators, for us to continue doing. I do not believe that there is any work that's going on with respect to any blades. And our understanding is that this issue is related solely to a GE blade failure, either in the manufacturing, as we're hearing, inspection, testing, et cetera.
Okay.
But that's distinct from any sort of ongoing activity related to this work.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Vineyard Wind to clarify what activity is allowed under this halt order from Bessie and what is not allowed. We would like some clarification on that because our understanding was the project was stopped. That doesn't sound like stopped means stopped. So we would like some clarification on what you were allowed to do out there and what you're not allowed to do out there at this point in time. You don't need to answer me right now.
We understand. I appreciate that.
Okay, right, terrific, thank you. Okay, and the question about what agencies are overseeing, we have been in touch with the State Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, thank you. They are meeting regularly with BOEM and Bessie, federal regulators, with the Mass DEP. And there's actually a statement that was posted this afternoon from the Secretary that details the activities that are going on with the state. And we will be pursuing direct communications with the federal regulators ourselves as well. So.
You said Bessie?
Yeah, which is, could someone tell me what Bessie stands for? It's the regulatory oversight for, Mr. Martella, please. I know the acronym, but I don't know what it means.
Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement.
Okay, so it is the enforcement and oversight. BOEM is the approval, as I understand it, and Bessie is the oversight after the projects are approved. Okay, so we've had those comments and questions. I took 2. Okay, Cliff Carroll online.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair and the Select Board for holding Vineyard Wind and GE's feet to the fire. Greatly appreciated. My name is Cliff Carroll. I've been doing business in Nantucket for about 45 years as both a mortgage banker, and I'm also a active realtor, member of the Nantucket Board of Real Estate. I'm going to just, I guess, because of the format, I'm going to put a bunch of questions out there. And Madam Chair, if you could please have them follow up, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll reserve an opportunity for a second chance later on this evening. I did my own little root cause study, and it appears that the reason that we're going through this is we have a foreign entity building 80-story steel forest with hundreds of thousands of gallons and a 50-story transformer platform in our fishing grounds just off our coastal beaches in the middle of our shellfishing beds. I'm also over here based in Cape Cod and Barnstable. And in the town of Barnstable, we're on the other end of this cable. And what we're getting stuck with over here are hundreds of thousands of gallons of transformer oil being placed in our sole source aquifer and well fields. For the record, the EPA and the Massachusetts DEP has refused to address those risks. The gentleman from Vineyard Wind earlier said that there were reports and photographs of spring-like seaweed blowing up in the beaches. I'm one of the folks that provided those photographs. It's fiberglass. It's the shreds of the fiberglass. They have shown up, and another gentleman didn't answer the question earlier. We've had pieces blow up in Hyannis, on Kelmus Beach, Chatham, Centerville on Craigville Beach, and allegedly part on Truro. I've noticed that during this format that Vineyard Wind has been very clever about trying to hand this blame over to GE and not answering the questions. That's exactly how this 2-year process has gone. They tell you they'll get back to you, and they never do, and now they're trying to pass the buck to GE. My question is, there's a 180,000-gallon transformer platform sitting just off our beaches. The debris has blown up as far as Cape Cod and the south shore of Cape Cod. Right now, Vineyard Wind is passing the buck to GE. They're in the room and being put under the fire for the blades. What company will be in the room when the transformer substation leaks the oil? Their own oil spill fatality chart shows that the oil will reach the shores of Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, in as little as 2 to 3 hours, Cape Cod in as little as 5 to 10 hours. These debris have shown exactly where that oil will end up at. What company will be in front of us when that disaster happens? How much oil is in that transformer? Yes.
Mr. Carroll, you have just a few seconds.
Okay, I'll finish this one question and return later. Is the transformer station currently active? And if so, how many thousand gallons of oil are sitting in it at this moment? And what company will be responsible?
Okay,
when
thank
that,
you, Mr. Carroll.
Let's go.
Mr. Carroll,
Thank you.
I'm tough, sorry. Okay, gentlemen.
George Ellis. The first question is, what percentage of the blade has been recovered to this point? And the second is, if in the future there are 1,400 turbines, that's obviously 4,200 blades. If you have a failure rate of 1% per year, that would be 42 occurrences of this per year, almost one per week. If you have one in 1,000 per year, you would be having 4 of these occurrences per year. I'm just concerned about the future risk.
And
the question is, what's their estimate on can they ensure a zero failure rate? It seems improbable.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Yep, you were up.
Hey, Justin Sandoli, thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to start by saying I think the approval of this project by both local, state, and federal governments is the worst thing that's ever happened in Nantucket. I think the fact that members of this board signed the Good Neighbor Agreement without consulting the citizens of the island is one of the worst things that's ever happened locally. I don't think there's any excuse for it, and I think you guys need to move forward with your solution to getting out of the Good Neighbor Agreement as quickly as possible and abandoning this project. It is a disgrace. This is a National Historic Landmark. 1,400 turbines. Like the gentleman just said, 3 failures a year, or sorry, 40 failures a year, whatever it is, happening once a week. We need to get out of this situation. All the conversations that are happening are in the context of this project continuing. What we need to be talking about is this project being done, put to rest for good. That's the only way forward here.
Thanks, Jesse. Anastasia Lennon online.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Anastasia Lennon, reporter with the New Bedford Light, and 2 quick questions. First, how far along is GE in its reinspection of blades that have been installed and also are staged in New Bedford? And so far, has GE identified others that may also have issues, manufacturing issues with the adhesive? And then for Vineyard Wind, how much debris and weight has been recovered to date?
So I'm going to go to GE on the question of how many blades have been reassessed, gone through the reassessment process that you described earlier.
Thank you. We announced, we shared the update today on the preliminary root cause analysis, and our approach to this is indicated by our CEOs to be thorough and not rushed. So we're going to take the time we need to be thorough and reviewed each blade and the records individually. So I'm not going to comment on timelines because, again, safety is going to trump all of our considerations. So that's our position.
Okay. I might ask that you keep us apprised of progress, even if we don't have a timeline for completion. Does that make sense? And then your question for Vineyard Wind was, do we have an assessment of the weight of the debris that's been recovered versus the blade itself? And I want people to understand that a percentage of the blade is still in place, so therefore would not be in any calculation of what's been recovered. But based on your estimates of what has been lost, do you have an assessment of what percentage has been recovered, I think is the question.
I wish I did for this meeting. I'd love to be able to give you precise numbers on that. I think George was a gentleman who asked, and Anastasia as well. What I can tell you is I will take this question back to the company and try and get that answer to you and try and get it into one of our morning updates to the board.
Okay, so as soon as possible, Anastasia, we'll add that to our morning updates as soon as it comes in. Val?
Thanks, Val Oliver. So an important fact to remember is, yes, blades and wind turbines have been around for a long time, but they have never been built at this size before. So we are, again, the guinea pigs. And here it's evident. From the start of this project, getting permitted within the thousands of pages of theoretical solutions of various scenarios that could go wrong, the action plans never considered this type of incident, a blade failure. It seems like a very likely flaw, and the permitting documents were never sufficient for this project to move forward. And this is an example of the fact that you don't know how to handle the situational emergencies as they arise. To me, the blame falls heavily on BOEM and NOAA and the government agencies that gave the green light without the proper review and fast-tracked these projects, this project and others, to go without taking the time to assess. So it's very interesting to me, and I'm glad to hear now we're going to take the time to figure out how to fix the problem. My question for Vineyard Wind is, financial assurances were waived by BOEM in 2021 for 15 years to help this project to move forward financially. How does that affect our request for help financially for our community?
Is Vineyard Wind prepared to answer that question?
What I can tell you is what the CEO of Vineyard Wind said at this meeting last week, which is that we're here, we're committed to cleaning this up, We're staying local. We're on this island. We talked about teams. We have scores of people who are here on this island cleaning things up. We have over a dozen vessels in the water. We're chasing every lead that we're getting on any debris in the water and on the shores, and we're committed to cleaning it up.
Okay, thank you. I think we would like an answer to the question about the financial question that Val asked in particular. Val, if you could email it to me, I'll make sure it gets on the list. Thank you. I've lost track. I'm going to go to Bruce Mandel online. I've got 4 people online, and then I'll take the 2 at the mic, and then we'll go finish online. Okay? Thanks for your patience, everybody, with my
Thank you, Madam Chair.
organizational challenges tonight. Go ahead, Bruce.
I hope you all can hear me. Couple of quick things. I wrote to each member of the select board with some concerns and issues, and of course, I hope that these points will make their way into the discussions once you've had a chance to digest them. Very interestingly, today we received the Vineyard Wind Blade Event initial environmental analysis. And I would like to know if this will be subject to a future session and when. That's one question. Number 2, I'm sitting here watching the Coast Guard go back and forth doing their duty here. I'm interested in that as an active member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary here. So they're out there working hard. The main question I want to address is last week, we asked the question about the ALDS system, the system that controls the flashing red lights on the top of the nacelles. And we asked when it would be operational, and are the nacelles equipped with the system, or will it be retrofitted, and when will it be activated? And we were told you would answer that this week. So I believe that question would be for Vineyard Wind, having Grid and Copenhagen infrastructure, and I would appreciate hearing an answer on that. Thank you.
Okay, Bruce, thanks. Do we put it on the list, or can you?
If you could, this is the first time I've heard this question. Okay. I apologize. And Bruce, I wasn't here last week, but if you could put that on the list, we will answer that.
Yeah, and I would just say on our behalf, we really have been focusing on the crisis level part of this, debris removal, et cetera. We will not lose track of that question, Bruce.
And we've been in the same boat as you know, meeting with you often, exchanging information, really focused on the emergency situation here.
Yep.
But these are important questions and they need to be answered.
Yep. We'll keep them on the list. Okay, Mary?
Mary Chalk. I read the assessment, the environmental assessment report, and there's no water quality testing in it. When is the water going to be tested? Also, they're asking us to not pick up the fiberglass and styrofoam that is washing up with every tide cycle, yet the beaches are open. And I'm looking at little footprints about this big, children, all kinds of bare feet next to this material and paw prints, and we're supposed to just leave it there. So it sounds like the beaches should be closed. If they're in PPE, we have to wait till they come in with their personal protective equipment to pick it up, yet our beaches are open. So, and also, Val keeps saying, we're guinea pigs, we're guinea pigs. She didn't pull that out of the air. We were told that back in 2019. I have an article here called Interior Delays Cost May Dim Offshore Winds Prospects, June 27, 2019, where Cruikshank, who was the director at the time, is quoted throughout. BOEM, which is a gatekeeper to offshore via its leasing power, is proceeding cautiously. navigating the many interests and demands that can intersect with the unknown entity of offshore wind, from commercial fishing to Department of Defense activities. There are those who are telling us to go big, go fast. There are others saying, if you have to do it at all, do it in phases with a lot of time in between, Cruikshank said in a recent interview. I really think the greatest uncertainty for things right now, and really for everyone who watches this industry, is what is going to happen after the first project gets built, BOEM Acting Director Cruikshank said. Will vessels navigate through the wind farm? Will fishermen fish within the wind farm? Will the concerns that people have expressed play out the way they fear they will? What issue might we have missed? Cruikshank asked. It's the kind of thing everyone is worried about, but it's nobody's job to find answers. Walt Majesel, NREL's principal engineer and management of offshore wind, said. So my question is, well, this is an experiment and the results are in. It's time to shut it down, take the blades, decommission what is out there, because experiment's over. And my question is the water testing, and how do you feel about the beaches being open and we have to leave this hazardous pollution on the beach? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Water quality testing. Does Arcadis have an answer as to timeline for or process for water quality testing? And then I'll fill you in on what town is working on. Jim?
Yeah, we know there is testing to do, water column amongst that, but no, really just in the last week has been getting our arms around this, but we know we have to move fast on the water column and other testing, so being developed.
Okay. I assume we'll continue to be updated on that progress as it moves along, and hopefully expedited for all the reasons we stated about shellfish and so forth.
And you're gonna fill us in on the town's efforts on water testing?
Yeah, and we also have a simultaneous effort in the Natural Resources Department to design a water quality testing. And I just want the community to understand that the scientific experts that we have locally, this isn't about going out and scooping up in a jar, and you have to know what you're looking for. There's to create an experiment that has valid results, it takes some time to put together the criteria for water quality testing. So it's not as simple as going out with a specimen jar. And so the Natural Resources Department has already begun the process of setting up our own water quality testing to verify against what is being done by Arcadis. So, Malcolm, you sounded like you were going to say something?
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's no baseline data for any of these. It's an experiment of an experiment, so we're doing what we can. Yeah. We don't want to do it wrong, and that'd be worse. The worst thing would be to get incorrect results. So it has to be done in a clear, verified, acceptable manner.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm Donna Martino. There's been a lot of really interesting discussion about what's gone wrong and a lot of corporate speak as response. I would like to say there's very little trash on Nantucket shores. You know, I've been coming for 30 years, so I don't know what you were picking up.
Ms. DiBrentino, we like to talk through the chair to other, not
I'm
directly to
sorry.
other folks, just as a
Okay.
protocol. Okay, thank you.
Number one, there's very little trash on the Nantucket shores. Number two, I know safety is important, but so is immediacy. We have the marine life, we have children on the beaches, we have adults on the beaches, we have pets on the beaches. I wonder if the board would consider our agreement and maybe put it out to our community and revisit our agreement in light of what's going on.
So I'd like to reiterate the final sentence in the statement I read at the beginning of the meeting, which is, This emergency has also revealed the inadequacy of Vineyard Wind's coordination and communication required by the Good Neighbor Agreement. Although the town has done its part to honor our obligations, we intend to renegotiate the terms of the Good Neighbor Agreement.
I would suggest we cancel it.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
just want, your
No, I
question was about renegotiating.
Yes,
and I said-
thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
My thought is just end it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take Mike Jacobs online.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, number one, thanks so much for the opportunity of talking. The first thing I want to say is how proud I am when I look at the wonderful people of Nantucket and the people that spoke tonight, how they were so intelligent and how they understand as more time goes on with this horrific project of building windmills and salt water, the more the public is being aware of what's going on. You cannot unfry an egg. They can talk all they want about how they're going to solve this problem. There are thousands, tens of thousands of shards of green styrofoam with pieces of fiberglass attached to it, resins. This is not going to get undone. And the other thing I want the good people to remember, they are building from Maryland to Maine 5,000 wind turbines, 5,000. Each one almost as tall as the Empire State Building. Each one has 3 blades. Each blade is as long as a football field. I love the guy, the young guy, that's who we have to look at. We inherited this beautiful ocean, the beautiful Nantucket from our parents. And that young man who said ban the project, we owe him an obligation. On our watch, we are watching our beautiful Nantucket and our ocean being destroyed. As I said, you cannot unfry an egg. This cannot be undone. And I want to say something else. When I look at the chair, Ms. Moore, I can see, don't have to say anything. I know a lot of people want to make a difference. I really spend a lot of time studying this situation. The government will crush you in local rule. So don't look at Ms. Moore like, do your job. It's not what she wants to do. Unfortunately, it's not even what the people of Nantucket want to do. It is what the government, the federal government, with its mandate that will have 60% of our energy from wind turbines in our oceans, a total fraud, done by foreign petrochemical companies. And you listen to people like GE and the other gentleman, maybe good people personally, really, but they're getting paid to tell you what they think you want to hear. There is no solution to this. The only solution is to kill this project, wake up the public, and realize what we have been given as our God-given right by the beautiful beaches, and this ocean we love is going to be destroyed unless this project is stopped. It's that simple. There's no
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
You're at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Amy?
Thank you. Amy DeCibio. And I just want to reiterate what someone else said earlier. Thank you, Select Board. I know you're taking this very seriously, and it's a lot of work, and we appreciate the time to talk. I want to piggyback on something that Val said earlier, and that is that there have been lots of examples of blade failures. You can see them even online on YouTube. And, in May, GE on this exact same model had a failure in Dogger Bank, England. I think we mentioned that earlier. But what I would like to understand is why there was no plan at all for them once this failure occurred. Their plans were all around petrochemicals and oil from the turbines leaking. So I'd like to understand why there was no plan once the incident occurred, and we're not really getting answers on this. Why was there a 48-hour nearly delay on letting anybody know? Because we talked a lot about that last week, but we still haven't heard that. And their messaging came out that it sort of implied that everything was contained, that they had a perimeter set up. So why was that not something that was actually put into action, a real perimeter? So I think we need answers there. Secondly, I was on the GE Vernova analyst call today, and they mentioned that their orders were down 44% because of a large project that was canceled. And I'd like to understand, was it because of, I'd like to know which project it was and why the project was canceled. I think that would be something that everyone here should have a good understanding of. As far as the Good Neighbor Agreement, you guys have heard me talk about this a lot, and I'm happy to hear that you're renegotiating, but I really hope that renegotiating doesn't mean for more money. The only mitigation on this project, the only real mitigation is to have no turbines. And we are not alone saying that. There was a very senior guy, Sean Hayes at NOAA, who was deemed a whistleblower, who put this out. There was a letter that was uncovered, I guess a year or so ago, that really got brushed under the rug. But this is a very important area for a critically endangered North Atlantic right whale. And Sean Hayes himself said that this area is inappropriate. You got to get these things off Nantucket shoals. So for a lot of reasons, this should go. And lastly, I just want to mention that, again, thank you for what you are doing, but where is the governor? This should be a U.S. congressional field hearing in Washington, D.C., and they're not going to listen to us, but maybe they'll listen to you. So I think we need to get Julian Sear, Dylan Fernandez, Governor Healy, whoever it is, and ask to push this there. This whole situation is so much bigger than Nantucket. And this very first project is just the tip of the spear. And they are looking to get this project through as a loss leader or whatever needs to happen to bring online many other projects. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Amy. Andy, and then I'm going to take everybody online straight through.
Andy Lowell, members of the board, Madam Chair, thank you especially for your assertiveness. It's been very admirable, honestly. And I'd just like to say, as a member of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, whether I go to the grocery store, the post office, or down for an ice cream after 9 at night, I'm being asked by my constituents and yours about the water quality. It's been about 11 days now since the incident, probably 22 tide cycles during that time. Has it entered our harbor? By the looks of the maps, the debris field surrounds the island, goes all the way to Cape Cod and further. So I know you've been asked this question already. I just want to reiterate that a lot of people are asking that question about water sampling. So
thanks, Andy.
Independent would be good. Our own department here would be nice if they were involved, aside from Arcadis. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We hear you. Thank you. Okay, Heather Mann online? Oh, sure. Yeah.
We are going to do it independently. The thing you have to understand, go back to COVID days. Remember when we first had COVID, there were lots of tests that came out. No one really knew how to do a proper test. No one had baseline. It was an absolute mess, and we made a lot of poor decisions about how we treated COVID. So we really have to get the water test right the first time. And it may take longer than we want, but let's do it right so we have the right information and not begin to think that we're safe and we're not, or think that we have a problem and we don't. So, and we do.
Thanks, Malcolm. Okay.
Just real quick, I
Matt.
just added, I'm making a list of things. I know you are too, but I'm making a list of things to add to our list. And one of them is, does the shellfish hatchery or does the Land and Water Council have any baseline? Do they have any water testing that we've done? Because I know we have various areas that we've sampled for multiple times over many years. So we may have more information than we think we have, so it's on the list.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Heather Mann online?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Heather Mann. I grew up in Massachusetts. I spent considerable time on Nantucket and in Brewster on the Cape. I live in Oregon now, and I'm part of the commercial fishing industry here. And we're watching this really closely and frankly with deep alarm as we face the potential of thousands of turbines floating off our coast. And I have a comment and a question. The comment is that I appreciate that Vineyard Wind and GE are concerned about safety. It was mentioned multiple times, and that may be because their own people now are in harm's way. But Vineyard Wind clearly was not concerned about mariners or the people of Nantucket when they waited 2 days to report to the town what had happened. And I know that you're going to be dealing with that, and I appreciate that. My question, though, is in terms of safety. A really important question was asked about how many blades had been examined. And many of us would like more details on what dangers exist with a quote unquote desktop exercise of reviewing the blades that your detailed quote unquote MRI-like photographs show, these photographs that you already possessed. You GE used safety as the reason to refuse answering the comment on how many blades have been examined and how many have potential problems. And I think it'd be important to please describe the dangerous circumstances that reviewing these existing files proposes. And thanks so much for the opportunity to comment.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a rhetorical question, but I do reiterate, do you want to answer?
Madam Chair, if I may, I didn't mean to cause any confusion or additional concern in my answer, because the straightforward answer is we announced our RCA today, our root cause analysis, and the investigations begin at this time. So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but this is the beginning of the process. And so in terms of the question I'm hearing about safety from the blades, again, very serious question and a question we take very seriously. I want to make sure that I'm not causing additional confusion. We'll answer what we can and we'll tell you what we can't. Those investigations will begin. We will look to share more information on the timeline, but we know we want to be rigorous and we want to be thorough. That's the most important thing. We have looked at the potential for risk for other situations. Obviously, we have the risk we're managing from the blade that's been part of this incident. The other potential is looking at other blades, and we've done a risk assessment of that, and we've looked at that, and we don't see a concern for risk from other blades at this time. So we're going to take the time to be thorough and rigorous in looking at these. We have a lot of details. You know, I'm not in a position to just kind of share the details on what these photographs look like and what that process is. We can hopefully come back to you with more of that. But I think the more we're able to share about this process, I think the more it will increase the level of confidence that this is a very rigorous process that we'll be looking for. It's going to take some time to go blade by blade and do, but we're going to take the time to do it right. So again, I just want to clarify, I didn't mean for my answer to raise additional concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bonnie Brady online?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, super great. Thank you very much. I have a series of questions I'm going to try to whip out, and then if I can, I'd like to be able to send those to the board. And then as much as any of the folks there from Vineyard Wind can answer them, that would be great. But I think it's faster and I'll get my 3 minutes in if I just run through them all completely. My name is Bonnie Brady. I'm from the Long Island Commercial Fishing Association. My first question is, I just want to confirm the Vineyard Wind LM107P blade that imploded, was that a material deviation? I thought last week Vineyard Wind had said they called that an installation deviation. Could someone please explain? Number two, the original blade that was replaced, the one that created the need for 3 new replacement blades, what was the issue with that blade specifically? Number 3, are all of the Vineyard Wind farm blades from Canada? Number 4, when you ship blades from Canada, how many do you ship at a time? 6 sets of 7 blades each? Number 5, are they placed on the barge? And I basically would like to know the procedure. Are they placed on the barge from the ship, and then what is done with them? Are they stored on the property, or are they immediately loaded onto the crane ship to be taken to the site? Are there any blades that are also faulty that have been stored on property or sent back to a plant? If so, which ones? And please explain what the issue was with the second mold in Cherbourg in France. It was a technical issue, we were told. What was that issue? And were blades affected by that issue? And have you checked the remaining mold in Cherbourg? I believe it was mentioned that this was a Canadian issue we were looking at, but I'm curious as to the remaining, because they both make the LM107P. I would also like to know, when it's spoken of the Halyard X220 blade, how that is different from the LM107P blade, which is being used. I'd also like to know how much epoxy is used in the creation of each blade, And is it a vacuum infusion or pre-preg? There's a document from Europe. They have the European Epoxy Resin Committee that estimates that 24,000 tons of BPA-based epoxy resin are used in rotor blades in Europe every year. And both out of 52,000 tons of epoxy resins used in wind turbine design overall, I'm quoting here, I can send you the document. Both figures do not account for imports in and out of the European Union, hence an actual epoxy use in this sector could be higher. I'd like to know how much epoxy resin is used in the creation of the LM107P blade. How many pounds per blade? How much epichlorohydrin? Also, epoxy resins used in both techniques require the use of biphenyl A, BPA, and epichlorohydrin, ECH, in the first reaction step of the manufacturing process. They are, however, used in different percentages, 45% BPA and
Okay,
55%.
Bonnie?
Yes,
Bonnie,
ma'am.
we are not able to take down these questions at the rate you're
Oh, I'm going to
speaking.
send that. I'm going to send them to you. No worries.
please.
I understand that.
Please, your 3 minutes are up, and what I'd like you to do is send your questions to the town manager's office.
I will do so. Can I
We
just
will-
add one sentence, please? I just want to point out that BPA, we all know about BPA and is highly toxic. So when a blade implodes like that, that's going to go into the water. Epichlorohydrin is a carcinogen. Thank you.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you. Okay. I'm going to go to MW Monahan, who hasn't spoken yet, and Cliff Carroll is up for a second, and so I'll take MW Monahan first, and then, okay.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
My question is for Vineyard Wind and the developer, GE Vernova. You guys there? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, my question is for both Vineyard Wind and the supplier, GE Vernova. How many and which projects are you guys doing in the US on the East Coast?
Okay.
Both of you individually, if you could please answer that question.
The question is, what projects are these two companies involved in?
Doing, yes, wind projects on the East Coast. I mean, if they can tell us, for the entire US, that'd be even better.
Okay. Is either organization prepared to answer, or can we put that on the list? Okay, Vineyard Wind, okay, we'll get back to us on that. Mr. Martello, did you want to?
Madam Chair, I believe the question is referring to offshore wind, and my understanding is this is our offshore wind project on the East Coast, but I will confirm that.
Okay, the one? Yes. Yeah, okay.
And Madam Chair, that's my understanding as well. I just don't want to give you information that's
Okay,
flawed.
so initial to be confirmed answer is that Vineyard Wind is the only project that, this project is the only one both organizations are involved in at this time. So, but subject to confirmation.
Thank you, Suzanne Girardi. I just had a question about the perimeter around the failed turbine is 500 feet. I'm just wondering if you don't know the integrity of the other blades that are up, is there a perimeter around those as well?
Anybody?
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. It's the same perimeter because it is the perimeter around the foundation. And so that 500-meter perimeter around the blade that you see in the pictures that's hanging is the same perimeter from the other.
So I think what she's asking is, are you also keeping an eye and have a perimeter around the other turbines because they are at risk as well? Suzanne, is that how I interpreted your question?
I understand. No, at this point, we don't have any information that's leading us to believe that the other turbines, which are not in operation right now, are posing the kind of risk that we experienced with this one.
Yeah, so that is what was explained to me. I've kind of asked the same question. Because of the halt and the turbines are not being utilized, it is believed that the risk is won't say zero. But the fact that this happened while this blade was operational, and they are not operational. And I also, it was made clear to me that not operational does not mean not moving at all. There is some natural movement in the turbines when they are in a, what was the term we used?
I believe the term was an idle state.
Idle state. Thank you very much. I should have remembered that. Okay. So do you want to do a quick follow-up?
That answered my question, thank you. And I just wanted to also just mention or ask the question, we received the material safety data sheets today, thank you. I appreciate that. The 500 pages nearly to read is not easy. My question is, when did the independent company Arcadis, when did they receive the material safety data sheets?
Are you all prepared to answer that?
I just think the timeliness of it being released to the public and to those that were exposed to it. Because in general industry, I'm in the healthcare industry, those need to be made available at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
We waited 11 days. Thank you.
I will also say we had some concern about the timing of the release of those data sheets.
Thank you.
So, based on the original commitment that we thought we heard last week, which was 24 hours, and that didn't happen. So we will follow up on that as well. Cliff Carroll online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had to wait to get unmuted. Again, thank you very much for your efforts and the entire select board. I don't think any of my questions I presented earlier were actually asked of Vineyard Wind or GE, but my question is, what company would be in front of us on the oil transformer platform? Was this blade attached to one of the 10 turbines that were considered to be active? I believe the reason they're doing a desktop assessment is because they're trying to operate from Canada and Europe. Very difficult to do it when you're not in the United States. Is there a quality control on that transformer platform? Dr. McNabb, I think that you should also look into beginning a study on what that oil will do to our shellfish beds. There's an 180-page oil spill fatality map that's already been supplied on the federal side of this project, shows exactly where the oil will go. I believe the town of Nantucket should cancel the contract. In addition to that, I think they should speak directly with the president of the Barnstable Town Council. We've been going through the exact same gyrations. Unfortunately, we also signed a host agreement, and it has handicapped us on trying to do anything and then allow them to simply override us with the state. They did not answer the bonding question. They have not supplied the town of Barnstable with the correct amounts of insurance either. The flashing light question, I'm 30 miles away in West Barnstable. I can see those at nighttime. They look like LaGuardia Airport. At 9:30 tomorrow morning, there are 2 lawsuits taking place, one in Barnstable Superior Court and one in the Boston Federal Court, both related to this project. Please cancel this project. It is not too late to do that. When everybody talked about canceling the project, silent threats were made to be suing towns. We could face a $100 million lawsuit. I think that Nantucket, I think the town of Barnstable should turn around and we should be the ones suing. And I think that Nantucket should join with Barnstable and also the Aquina tribe, who I also understand has requested a stop on this project. There's only been 10 operational out of thousands. Why are we going to wait to go any further? Please stop the steel forest now. Thank you very much to the select board. Thank you, Madam Chair. Greatly appreciate your efforts.
Okay,
Have a good
Mr.
evening.
Mr. Carroll, if you could please email those specific questions about the platform. I'm not actually following it because it's not sort of directly involved in what we're addressing here from Nantucket. So if you could email that to the town manager's email address.
I will do that, but it is the same emergency, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, I'm going to take Christina Kramer, who's a first-time speaker. Ms. Kramer, you need to unmute you.
Hi, sorry.
That's
Can you
okay,
hear
go
me
ahead.
now?
Yep, go
Hi.
ahead.
I just want to state that anyone who works for the turbines has blood on their hands. Everyone who works for offshore wind turbines is contaminating one of the planet's most important food dishes with the planet's most toxic chemicals such as PFAS and bisphenol A. The ocean is so polluted that researchers are determined that the fish will be unedible. The sea is slowly dying in cinema, and the offshore wind industry cheered for Norway, working people to poison the life of the sea in our industry chain even more. They don't actually understand what they're doing. Humans will be infertile as a species before 2040 with all these PFAS. The chemicals are to blame for our reproductive crisis everywhere and in everything. This is nothing less than a full-scale crisis situation for humanity. We beg Nantucket to save the world, save the ocean, and stop Vineyard Wind as the first offshore wind project to get stopped. And let's keep it going on the East Coast. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Bruce Mandel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to hear that the MSDS sheets have been delivered. I guess my question is where can we find those to look at them? Number two, I'm very pleased that we're going to be trying to do water tests independently, but while we're developing our water testing and how we're doing the sampling, I'm concerned because this water is not standing still. It's becoming dissipated, it's becoming diluted, and I think that there needs to be more of a sense of urgency in obtaining samples before whatever's in them is just diluted or washed away. And I heard a comment just a couple of minutes ago about this is the only project Vineyard Wind's involved in. I guess he meant with GE Vernova, because we know that Vineyard Wind is involved in a couple of other projects in the lease areas. And I'd be interested to find out more about the answer to that question. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Okay, Val?
Just a quick comment. I always encourage folks who really don't know much about any of this, because I've been looking at it for so long, to take it upon yourselves to go to the BOEM website and look up the construction and operation plan for Vineyard Wind. And it is not exciting reading, thousands of pages, a lot of it redacted where there's any important information, but I think it's really helpful because it gives you an understanding of the magnitude of what's involved. And I would just say, I think it would just be helpful. So that's it.
Thanks, Val. Ellen?
I would hope that all these questions that you're receiving and that we're asking you, that you would get them in a letter or a article in the newspaper, somewhere where we can read them in the public eye. You know what I mean? I mean, I know you have them at your meeting, but I asked the question last week about hurricanes, and I don't understand. They put the federal government put the cart before the horse, allowing so many of these windmills when we don't know what is going to happen when this, and we've only had one blade. So I guess my first question is, how many blades are there out there that are made of the same material as the one that fell? Then I'd like to ask, what kind of oil is used in these turbines and any other machinery out at the site? That hasn't been touched on at all. Is it a hazardous oil? What kind of oil are they using? So if the whole thing falls, then we have to deal with oil. I thought this was a green project, and it's pretty dirty right now. And I'm sorry, you all are on the second wind of this because it's the federal government that sold our ocean. But you all, with your good neighbor agreement, which I really hope you'll pursue a lawyer, this 9-page document, whereas I guess there were a few public hearings, but you should have had a town meeting and let us all discuss this in open. I understand there were people there when they tried to speak at your meetings, they were told by the lawyers that, that we weren't going to discuss this. Anyway, So those are questions from this week, but I want to know what you're going to do. Okay? The cart was put before the horse, and again, a hurricane. You didn't even have a hurricane happen, and look at the disastrous effects. And then, let's see. So this is one big experiment, which you all signed happily because we received money. So I'd like to understand, by reading this document, you received $4 million, correct, so far? Where'd the money go? I'd like to get, and I'm asking for a public record right now. I want the document that shows me where the 4 million went. I believe it's 4 million. I've heard a lot of numbers here. Then I hear you're going to get another 3 million if you haven't gotten that yet. But for $7 million, these 4 people signed this contract, and it's a disaster. So now you all, which you all were not on the board, I'm not sure who was on the board. I know, Don, I know you signed it, and I don't think any of you others.
I signed it.
You signed it too, but in this thing I have, it only has Don. The copy that I got.
Only the chair signed.
I was the chair at the time.
Okay, you were the okay.
Ellen, that's 3 minutes.
Okay.
And,
oh, one other question. I want a phone number. I understand the hotline number. If I'm on the beach and I see something, I'll call. I want to know who I can talk to at Vineyard Wind, besides calling about debris. I have these questions. I had questions last week. Nothing's getting answered.
Okay, Ellen, we're going to do our best to compile the questions and get answers and continue to post the answers on the offshore wind page on the town
All right, so
website.
it'll all be on the offshore wind page.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight again, and there's a 9 o'clock ferry, so is there any committee reports?
I have a couple more comments on this before we go.
Go for it.
I think there's some misunderstanding on the Good Neighbor Agreement. I think people think that we had the ability to say no when we were signing that. That was a view toward mitigation on the view. It was Chapter 106. It wasn't, any risks or all risks into the future. That's something that is being discussed now. That was a specific aspect. I think there's a misunderstanding. I think there's a misunderstanding that we can like magically stop that and this will go away, and that we can save the world. I would love to be able to save the world. I like that comment, but I think that, there's a lot we can do and we're going to try to do that. One other thing, Joe Farrell, who is Resolve Marine, he's an island resident here in the summers. He's the one who's been asking us to put things, beach erosion. He was the one that's been here a number of times. Yeah, he was talked about reefs off ashore. They're not anything to do with here, but he has a love of Nantucket and is a good person to be involved doing this. I think we should ask for a state and federal update. I think, how do they plan to ensure that the island and the ecosystem doesn't suffer anymore? And what do they plan to, and how are they going to address this? How are they going to ensure that this is fully addressed? Sort of the questions. And I think that we should be, as a board, asking them to come here and to speak to us at some point. I think our representatives, I think the state, I think those offices, I think that's a very good suggestion. I think what Mr. Sandoli is talking about is the overall risks, and it is in the thousands of pages that Val is talking about. And I think that is something that we are, I'm not sure that any of us are qualified to assess those, but that is something that we are concerned about as much as everybody else here. Some of the other things that were sort of talked of, have been sort of brought up, I think one is beach raking. I think that's one of the things that's going to have to be done at some point and how do you rake a beach to get all the little stuff off? I have no idea, but this is pretty serious situation. The only other thing just that I had written down earlier today, right now the state is doing an ocean management plan they're updating the ocean management plan. I found this on the Cape Cod Commission's website. We have a member on the Ocean Advisory Committee, or Ocean Advisory Commission. It's an NPNEDC is our representative. It is Andrew Vorse, who's no longer here, so we should appoint a new one. But the NPNEDC would be should be involved along with us to be representing us, proactively in these hearings. And I just wanted to bring that up. We have there, that is the proper place for fishery and a lot of this stuff, to be planning ahead. And I already talked about raking. How do we clean it up once it's already in the sand? It's going to be buried. There's going to be a lot of issues that we still need to work through. But those are the sort of things I heard and things I thought about myself. Thank you.
Quickly,
real
please.
quick.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. This is really simple. What we're talking about here is mass industrialization of our oceans. This stuff is going to keep happening. That's a fact. It's mass production of gigantic man-made turbines going out into the middle of the ocean. We can get down in the mud all we want and talk about how these things are made and that the MRI machine didn't work and that the MRI machine should be better. The fact of the matter is that this is going to keep happening until this project is shut down. How could that not be more clear to everyone? That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thanks, Jesse.
I'll be quick.
I think,
Can I just have my second shot, and I'll be very fast?
okay,
Thank
quickly,
you.
and then
Thanks, Madam
that's it.
Chair.
Okay.
I want to agree with what you guys are saying about the Good Neighbor Agreement, that Nantucket could not, we had no veto power. Nobody had veto power to stop the project. But by entering into the Good Neighbor Agreement, what it did was it put Nantucket in a position where our select board and our administrators in the town must support this project at every level of government. So although the agreement, the only reason they came to talk to you was because of the impact on your view shed, by our view shed here. By signing the agreement, though, it handcuffs us from pushing back. It handcuffs you from pushing back on this project on anything. And I would encourage you to walk away from this. We'd love to see you join forces with Act for Wales and maybe the Chamber of Commerce here and push back on this project and future projects. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Any board or committee comment, any board, you know what I'm trying to say. Committee reports. Sorry. Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's always unanimous.
Please don't leave. I have the